Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Ginny moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy seconded. Any discussion?
For example, this year they had the String Queens, which was a quartet of all women playing the violin and guitar and the bass and whatever. It was wonderful because they had it decorated, and they even had food that if you didn't have an opportunity to eat your dinner, you have a chance to get food and really enjoy wonderful events. And like for the Chrysalis, this year they had that mini maker fair. They had, and I know they had over 2,000 or 3,000 children. I mean, people were just coming, and it was families that were coming. It wasn't like one person coming. And when you have something that families can afford to attend, I think is really, really, really very important. The main thing I think about the arts, and my family's arts, my brother's an artist, his wife was an artist. The thing that I said, as I said at the beginning, it is one of the few kinds of entertainment that bring the community together, from black, white, purple, orange. If they go to a good event, they all going to go, and when they start to clap it to the music, everybody's clapping. What I ask you to do, if you can, to please to support the grant for the Inner Harbor Trust, because the trust provides valuable partnerships for the arts community and a valuable resource for our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions? No? Thank you. Next up, we have Nina Basu. Welcome, Nina.
Hi. Nina Basu, President and CEO of the Inner Arbor Trust. I am here today to support our grant request for $157,000. I believe that the documents associated with that grant request were submitted to CA along with the request. I wanted to make myself available for any questions.
Thank you, Nina. Any questions? Oh, Alan.
You mentioned at some point, I don't remember when and where you mentioned it, that you thought that you all would be self-sufficient in 2 years. On what basis is that?
So we are working towards an earned revenue and a fundraising stream that is separate and apart from CA. Now, CA owns the land, and as you know, we have a phased easement. So on March 14th, 2024, our expenses go way up. We are working not just with this grant request, which is for a piece of our overhead and operating budget, but we are working through a number of grant processes right now, including state art council funding and also private funding. We are aggressively fundraising. Every time you come to an event free or paid, we are following up with every one of those users to try and raise both small and large funds. We look like we're going to end the year at $70,000 in fundraising funds. And in addition to that, we are exploring a number of options for revenue. For example, I think I've joked with everyone in this room that our kids series could very well be called Mimosa Moms and Dads, because we take donor-sponsored programming, which provides a major service to the community, and we find a way to find an ancillary revenue stream. Those pieces alone are not enough for full sustainability. We are working on one very large project, which I can't share quite yet because it's still in a bid process, which we are looking to use to create that annual revenue stream to cover our overhead expenses. Now, we are looking for capital investment from the state of Maryland and from Howard County, because we are building cultural amenities within the park. And while that park is on CA-owned private property, it is a public amenity.
Ginny.
Yeah, you were saying in 2024 you'll be acquiring more land based on the contract, right?
According to the phased easement
Right.
on March 14th, 2024, we have full responsibility. Right now, CA has shared responsibility. It has control over phases 2, 3, and 4 of the easement, while the trust has control over phase 1, which is roughly 22 acres. And
here's
yes,
my
sir, go
question.
ahead.
What, and you may not be able to answer this unless you go back to your board and ask this question, but have you given any thought to asking for a change in that contract so that you don't acquire that land so quickly, because that's right around the corner, since you really have trouble raising the money right now for maintenance of the land that you do have, and until you get that land straightened out and improved, et cetera, have you thought about maybe not acquiring any more and, maybe make it 2030 or something?
So I couldn't answer that question
Okay.
without consulting counsel.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Nina. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Chris Fuchs. Chris, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. So I'm here to speak about Tot Lot DS05, which is located by Manor Hill Drive and Willow Grove Drive. I had created a packet and already presented to this body earlier, I think last year it was. And I just want to make sure that I'm making a final push for this. There have been some concerns. The concerns that I hear is, first off, that other tot lots are closing, and meanwhile we're trying to build this one up. And I do want to just point out this is not kind of an apples to apples comparison here. This tot lot that we're talking about is heavily used and is in a neighborhood that is turning over very quickly with young families. So this is the ideal place to put an upgraded tot lot into place, as opposed to the tot lots that are being closed are less used, smaller, and not well maintained. Another concern I've heard is about environmental concerns regarding the mulch versus the mulch that's currently in place versus the rubber that this would have. So the one thing that I have to say is the mulch that's there has been replaced probably 3 times since I've been living there in 2 years at this tot lot. I live very close by. The replacement of that has to cost a lot of money. It's a lot of time for capital projects to come and do this, or maintenance or open space, whoever it is. There's also the concern with the wood that it's being built with. Apparently there was a bad batch of wood to build these tot lots. We've already had to replace the swing set because it was rotting and infested with bugs. There are also wasps that are infesting the little fort, so that's going to probably need to be replaced too. There's a retaining wall there, and with all the rain that we've had, that's bulging and is going to have to be replaced, or it will fall down, and that's a danger to the kids. Another one is that it would not be used. From anecdotal evidence myself, but that's what we're talking about as a single instance of these tot lots. It's used all the time. We have a neighborhood text chain, and one of the most frequently used phrases is, "We'll meet you at the tot lot." So it is always being used. It is a very heavy volume of folks going there. So one of the other things is talking about the replacement. And in the future, lots of these tot lots are going to need to be replaced. This is the ideal location to put a beta test, right? To do a pilot project and say, this is the way that we want to go in the future. Capital projects I've been working with, and they've created a plan. It was included in the packet. It meets all the guidelines that you need for a safe playground, including the fall zones, the space required, and meets every wicket that is required to set up a tot lot. I can see this being overall savings in the future. Like I said, these wooden tot lots that we currently have need to be replaced. You get a bad batch of wood. You get a lot of rain. They start to mildew, rot, fall apart. This is going to save you a lot of money in the near future, so I know that that's a consideration that needs to be taken into place. The aesthetics stick with a brown and green, so the wooded setting. So that's another thing. And we have a great beta test group in our neighborhood. There's lots of children of all ages, from my son just turned 2 all the way up through 14 years old. There would be new parent amenities, seating, gathering place for the community. It's a real seat in our neighborhood, a very centralized location. So it's going to be used by a lot of people. This neighborhood is turning over. 20% of the homes in the area have sold in the last 3 years. Original owners are moving out, and young families are moving in with kids. During a recent block party, we had 25 households attend, which included 30 children. If you extrapolate that out to the nearest homes, there's 120 kids within a 5-minute walk. So I think this tot lot is the right way to go for this neighborhood and for Columbia Association.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Any questions? Greg.
So what do you want us to do?
Great question. There is a proposal in place to put an upgraded tot lot, replacing the wooden with a playtime.
It's in the budget already.
Correct.
So you're piling on.
I am. I'm making sure that there are no further questions or objections or concerns, and making sure I'm answering those.
All right, I'm making sure I'm understanding what you're saying. It's a lot of enthusiasm.
Janet.
Actually, for Dennis, I'm just curious, is there actually a cost savings? Would you anticipate, I mean, because this is a pretty expensive tot lot, so would you actually anticipate there being a cost savings, or is that?
So if I could, it's interesting, there are only 5 tot lots in Jersey Hall.
Yes, remember.
And Oakland Mills has 19, and Kingston
Yeah, I'm not-
Drive-Ins has 29.
I'm not arguing the merits of it, I'm just
I don't
curious.
Think, honestly,
in
I
terms
don't think it's a real cost savings, but I still think it's the right thing to do based on the community.
Nancy. And
Can
then
I just, it sounds like you were asking for the rubber versus the wood mulch, and
Not rubber mulch, like a rubberized kind of a mat, so it wouldn't wash away, it would be in place.
right.
And I believe it's permeable as well, is that correct? So it wouldn't prevent rain and hurt.
This is not like the rubber tire kind of stuff. You wouldn't want that. Okay, good.
So that would wash away. And that's one of the big problems we have is right now, one solid rain, all the mulch that has been put down, and that happened. When we replaced that swing set, they put down all fresh mulch. It looked fantastic for about 2 days. And then it rained, and then it was just rivulets and runoff everywhere. So it doesn't even look like it would be great to play with.
Shari, and then Renee.
Okay. I just wanted to ask Dennis. Sorry about that. You ran away too fast. I had asked, I think when this first came up, if you could give us a readout of what the cost for replacing tot lots has been, something comparable to the size of this.
In total, so if we were to replace this in kind, or actually we don't do wholesale replacements if we don't have to, we replace pieces. And so something like this where we replace pieces probably would cost us $45,000, maybe $45,000 if we replaced it in kind, just piecemeal. So we don't go in and do a wholesale replacement. If the fort is good, but the swings aren't, I don't replace everything. And honestly, if the fort is mostly good, and there's 1 or 2 bad posts, I replace the posts. I don't replace the whole thing. Otherwise, we have 165 tot lots. It would be more than we could.
Now again, the durability of this plastic and wood would be greater than the wood, right? Or I'm sorry, the plastic and metal, powder coated metal would be much greater. So there wouldn't be any very small foreseeable replacement costs in the future. Whereas these wooden ones, you're going to be replacing them constantly. This
Do
is
those
almost
have
a
to be
one and done.
painted?
Sorry?
Do those have to be painted?
I'm sorry?
The plastic ones?
No, it's
Or
powder
the
coated.
metal?
It's powder coated.
Right, so
So-
none of that would have to be,
Unless someone were to vandalize it, we wouldn't paint it probably. It wouldn't need to be painted.
Okay, Renee.
Can I just ask a quick question about the rubberized mat? Is there a subflooring under that, and what would it be?
There's a stone base, sub-base that goes in underneath of it.
It's what?
Stone sub-base.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll get into more discussion when we get to capital budget. Next up, we have Chris Lee. Chris, welcome.
Good evening. I left at each one of your chairs a draft letter that we created to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General entertains opinions, requests for opinions CA has availed themselves of this in the past. And given that the zoning has been contentious in various areas, on Broken Land Parkway, on Stone River Parkway, and undoubtedly in other areas in the future, I'm urging the board to make this request to the Attorney General's office. They refer it to an attorney at the Maryland Office of Planning, and this man is very knowledgeable about zoning law in Maryland, and I've read several of his opinions, and he is able to drill down on the issues that we're confronting here. And these opinions are authoritative. And so, and it also will take kind of a lot of the politics out of things, because he just looks at the legislation and he looks at the Maryland Annotated Code and he comes back. And what we have here is we have people finding elephants in mouse holes. And the whole idea under our charter, contentious policy disputes are resolved by people through their elected representatives on the council. When a particular policy gets enough support and leaps the hurdles of the charter, it becomes the law of Howard County. For our system to work, we must have a shared common language. When the people of Howard County come to a consensus, there must be a way to reduce agreement to words that we can all understand and accept, both today and in the years to come. We must have confidence that our words will be faithfully construed in the future, consistent with our common understanding. That confidence is destroyed if people undertake to debate difficult issues, accept the daunting task of forging compromise, and then reduce the compromise to legislation, only to have county agencies surprise the people with illogical rulings that bear no resemblance to our common language. We need to respect the choices made by our county legislators about when, where, and what land uses should be designated. We should not impose on a more than half-century-old statute a meaning that the council or successor councils enacted that they in the legislative process would not have accepted. So, as I said, I just think that if this would be a way to resolve the issues in a very definitive way, and it is authoritative, so I thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Any question, Alan?
Is this something that you as a private citizen could send?
No. Under the rules, elected representatives, your delegates, the county executive, they're eligible to. I believe that CA is eligible to make this request. CA has requested Attorney General opinions in the past. Perhaps Sherry can speak about that.
The only people who can request an opinion from the Attorney General.
Sherry, the microphone, please.
The only people who can request an opinion from the Attorney General are public officials. CA cannot request an opinion from the
Well, they have gotten in the past, so I presume that they ask a public official to do it, I guess, is the answer. But I do know that on several matters, the CA was given an Attorney General's opinion.
Without going into any detail, as you think about the panoply of issues that we've been talking about for the last few years, what's the 1, 2, or 3 biggest benefits that you think a ruling would help us with?
People have the right to rely on the zoning. And one of the outgrowths of all the technology that we have, before, when they would adopt the zoning regulations, they were using typewriters and cutting and pasting. Now they can just go in and, of course, use a word processor. And it used to be that every 10 years we would do comprehensive zoning, and requests in between those 10 years were discouraged because the council, the Howard County government, has the power for zoning, but it's got to be stable, and it's not intended to be constantly evolving.
Okay, I get that sort of feels more like background.
I'm sorry.
If the Attorney General gave an opinion that you hope the Attorney General would give, what would be the 1, 2, or 3 sort of tangible outcomes, given all the different things we're dealing with? Would it affect Lakeview? Would it affect the business parks, would it affect rezone the third lane at Snowden and Broken Land? I don't know, all the different things that we've been.
It would bring into consistent application of the law the redevelopment of the commercial areas outside the downtown and the villages. And that's where we have the problem. And Andy did this terrific compilation, which I was using the other day, of every final development plan there. And that we have the situation whereby we don't know what the rule is. Last year, or 2017, the county amended the final development plan for the courthouse. I think actually it was allowed before they did it, but they decided in an abundance of caution. But ironically, they added it as a ancillary use. Well, the courthouse is obviously a primary use, and so it starts to look absurd. And a year and a half ago, CA was required to amend the King's Contrivance final development plan to place the material that you dredged from the lakes. Well, on that FDP, that's not even a land use. You know, grading and filling is not a land use. Nobody comes over there and, yeah, let's go, you know, maybe your kids go over there with the Tonka toys, but we have the tot lots for that.
Would it improve this? Last question. Would it improve the Royal Farm situation from our point of view?
In my opinion, the expansive reading of the regulations by the Department of Planning and Zoning is beyond any reasonable interpretation. They seem hell-bent on doing it, but yes, it would affect that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Chris. Okay, that's all I have on my list. Anyone else? Sure. Please come on. And please give us your name and...
My name is Larry Forza. I'm the president of the Heritage Green Townhouse Association. We are located on Rivendell and Cedar Lanes, where they join, and we consist of 2 courts, Lightfoot Path and Winding Star Circle. We recently learned in December that the county has plans to put a fire station at the intersection of Winding Star Circle where it meets Rivendell and Cedar Lane, which is immediately next to some of the ballparks on the south end of Cedar Lane Park and immediately at the dog park. So the fuel facility that they're proposing there would be something like 75 yards away from the existing dog park, also about 75 yards away from some of my neighbors. They would be sharing an intersection now with that fire station, and there's already a bit of trouble. I mean, it's a low speed limit because of the park and various controls, speed bumps and so forth. But it is a curve, it is a hill, and the sight distances are surprisingly short for a neighborhood. So they are planning on having the exit road from the fire station and presumably the large complex that they intend to put beyond the fire station where the middle school at Harper's Choice is. So our concern is very much that this fire station is going to be a very large change to the community and a very large impact on the dog park. I mean, I'm not sure, I'm not a dog owner presently, but I'm not certain that I would like to have a siren occasionally going off while my dog is playing, much less if there are a number of other dogs also distressed at the same instant. That would be the occasion if they came to that intersection and because of all the traffic at the park felt they needed to use their lights and siren in order to make a safe exit. It would be a pretty astonishing sound. I'm rather certain I would not be allowed to have a permit to make such a sound in that location. Yet they're talking about doing that up to 20 times a day, while the existing fire station that serves us, drawing a blank now on the name of it, but
Banneker.
Thank you, Banneker Station. Once they have built this thing at our neighborhood, they intend to close Banneker for a period of time. Given that it took them a year and a half to do a retention pond at my neighborhood, I can imagine it might take them somewhat longer than a year and a half to build a fire station. So there might be 3 years to 5 years of additional fire station traffic. In order for them to build this thing as it's proposed, they will have to have an additional road put through And that will, I believe, require an easement or an accommodation from the Columbia Association. We are very vigorously pursuing with our state delegate and the county council options for mitigating this fire station's impact on our neighborhood. And I would just like to ask the Columbia Association not to be too quick to grant an easement and make it easy for the county to just say, well, we own the land, we've got rights to everything, and we're doing it. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Questions? Greg and Dick and Alan.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Your association, I assume, your first position is you don't want the fire station there at all, right?
That would be our preference.
Okay, and then the second thing is, well, okay, if it's going to be there, let's
make it so that it's not a serious problem. They're talking about having to remove the existing traffic calming devices between Winding Star Circle and Harper's Farm Road. They claim that most of their traffic will be south on Rivendell, but my guess is if there are any contingencies that would require them to turn north on Cedar Lane, they will go north on Cedar Lane.
Right. And then how many units do you represent?
I represent 80 units, about 200 citizens.
Thank you.
Dick?
There are quite a few playing fields around there too.
There are playing
and
fields.
I imagine you get quite a few kids running around.
There are a lot of kids running around. I mean, there are a number of safety concerns. I wasn't going to give you the same spiel I gave to the county because it's really their issue. But we have a number of concerns that we've addressed with them, and we're working with President or County Executive Mr. Ball and his staff, as well as the Department of Public Works, to find some way to make this work. I mean, Mr. Ball chaired a committee to figure out good uses for locating things like fuel stations. Well, the county's position is, oh, that doesn't apply to us. So we're going to put 20,000 gallons of diesel and gasoline right at the entrance so that it'll be easy for the fire station to use it and future police department to use this fuel station. And it is at the top of the hill where all the drainage begins into the middle of the Duxon River. So it will go from there.
Apparently they decided the regulations don't apply to fuel station, to gas stations either, but that's another issue. Two questions. What is it, have you thought about, and if you haven't, please do, what you would like us to, when you say don't be too quick, what would you like, we have apparently, take your word for it, an easement we would need to give them. We don't usually get paid for easements, but we do negotiate terms. What kinds of terms would you like to see the county agree to before we give them such an easement?
Well, I would like to at least let the process play out. I don't have a specific idea of what the answer is or what the CA should do, other than my concern was that they will have all of the pieces in place so that there's so much invested in this project idea. So far as we know, they've considered no other sites. I think it was simply they want this big project. They've got a big pile of land, and they already own it and probably have access to it. We're trying to slow that train down, honestly. I don't have a specific recommendation on what you should do other than allow the process to play out.
So that leads to my second question. Granted, you haven't heard, and I don't know either, whether they looked at different sites. And of course, we're talking about my village. One of the issues in this kind of thing always is, if not here, where? And if everybody says not in my backyard, it doesn't get built anywhere.
Yes, sorry.
So obviously there's no specific sites to say this would be better because of X, Y, and Z. Do your folks have any sense of to use the term they use in standing issues these days, why you would be specially aggrieved by having it there as versus having it somewhere else, people be lesserly aggrieved?
Well, I think there are a number of possible locations that would have less impact. And if you think about what is there now is a school, a park, a dog park, a skate park. There's every kind of park you can name. In the summertime, and especially in football season in the fall, that road is double parked. We've gone to the county over the years and had them make it so that there was only parking on one side of the street, because before there was double parking on both sides of the street, and it's only a 2-lane road at best there. So we've worked with that. We've worked with the signs. It's a very busy place. I cannot imagine in a county this large with as much green space as there is that there is not a spot of land where a fire station could be put that would not completely alter the location. I mean, we were joking around just looking at, taking the little picture that they gave us of the fire station and dropping it in different places in Google Maps, and it actually fits extremely well right at the Homewood School entrance. There's a very large patch of land there with nothing there but a signpost that has plenty of space, and it would be better. The fire chief, when I spoke to him, said he would rather have it closer to Centennial Lane, but he goes wherever DPW tells him. So,
thank you,
Nancy, and then Renee.
I just wanted to say that it sounds like it's not a done deal, because I was recently at a meeting where some assistants to the fire chief spoke, and they pointed out all of the various fire stations. This one was not included, and they did mention that there was a public meeting with the residents in the community. But there was no, it didn't sound like it was written in stone.
our hope is that it is not. When they spoke with us, this meeting, this project was floated at some Harper's Choice, at a village meeting. One of my residents went there and came back with a report that said, well, he spoke to the county, and they said, well, we don't have any funding. It's just a thing we're considering. A year and a half later, there's a little blue sign on the corner of Rivendell and Harper's Choice that has incorrect information on it. We dope it out, and it's like, oh, it's a fire station. And they present it as though it's like an ongoing thing. Our real hope is that that Mr. Ball does not have a vested interest in this project as his own, and that the fire chief and the police chief that wanted this whole thing are no longer with him. So,
Renee, and then Milton.
If I remember that area, I don't live in your village, but there are other small communities right there. Have you spoken with the other HOAs about their feeling? And
just getting started on that road. We're reaching out to groups that use the dog park, reaching out to groups that, in fact, we had some of those folks at the village meeting 2 weeks ago, and they spoke out about their concerns. So it's difficult to get a lot of foot traffic in the middle of winter, but if we can slow this thing down long enough to have the ability to petition through the spring and warm weather when the park is in use, I think we will find that there's a fairly large voice that says, let's think about this.
Milton?
The only comment I would add, and this is just from experience, I don't know what the final location will be, but there's going to have to be a new fire station in Columbia. So I don't want anyone to think that it's not going to happen. It's just where it's going to be. But with the redevelopment in the downtown area and response times and laws, there's going to have to be a new fire station in Columbia.
I had a very enriching conversation with I don't think he was the fire chief, but he was one of the assistants. And he and I talked for probably an hour after the meeting. And he explained to me what's really going on is that with all the downtown redevelopment, Banneker, our station, is going to be much busier in the center of town and less available to the outskirts. It a little bit befuddles me that there's absolutely no mention of it in the county's master plan. It was revised in February, and it said, we're okay, 2 more stations in the county would be good, but it also said that 20 years ago. So I don't understand the urgency. I don't understand, how the project went from 0 to, well, I can't call it 0 to 60, but 0 to 57, with no one knowing about it.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all I have then for President Speak Out. Move on, chairman's remarks. It's in writing. I did forget to read one thing. I noticed that. Sorry. I did forget to read in that there was a closed meeting of the board of directors on February 7th. In attendance were Dick, Lynn, Janet, Alan, Milton, Greg, Andy, Ginny. 2 came late. The vote to close was 5-1-0. Alan opposed. Meeting would close at 7:04. Opened at 9:55. Was it closed under sections 1, 3, and 8, 6. Discussions of matters pertaining to employees and personnel. Consultation with legal counsel. Considering the terms and conditions of a business transaction negotiation stage, as the disclosure could adversely affect the economic interests of the homeowners association. Purpose, board met in closed meeting to discuss various topics requiring the advice of legal counsel. There was a closed meeting of the Architectural Resource Committee on Monday, February 11th. In attendance, Sherry Fanneroff, Deb Block, Carl McKinney, and Gracie Bradford. Vote to close was 4-0. Meeting was closed at 1:04 and opened at 2 o'clock. Reason to close was HOA Section 4, consultation with staff, personnel, consultants, attorneys, other persons connected with pending and potential litigation. And the purpose was discussion of new and ongoing covenant cases. There was a closed meeting of the board of directors on February 14th. All the board members were in attendance. The vote to close was 8-0. Alan and Greg opposed. Meeting was closed at 9:46. Opened at 11. It was closed under Section 3, consultation with legal counsel, legal matters, and the purpose of the meeting was to discuss a legal issue. Sorry, I forgot to read those earlier, and I apologize. Okay, any questions for the chair on his report? Nope. Okay, we're going on to President's report.
Quickly, before I get to any questions any of the board members may have about the report, in a previous communications, we let you know that we're going through a transition in the position of HR director. Ron Melliker will be moving from the HR director position to project manager because we're installing a new HRIS system. And so we went through a search process and we've hired a new HR director. And Susan, please.
So I'd like to introduce you to Monica Ajayi. She's here this evening to just meet everyone and to introduce herself. And Monica's a seasoned HR leader and certified senior HR executive, and we're just delighted to have you. So
thank you. I'm glad to be here as part of the team. I am actually a Columbia resident. I live in King's Contrivance.
I knew I recognized you.
Raising my 2 daughters here, and my husband actually works in Columbia too. So we truly are a family that is living, working, and playing in Columbia. And I'm looking very much forward to being able to contribute to all of the things associated with making Columbia Association achieve its goals.
Well, welcome, Monica. Thank you for coming up tonight.
Thank you for having
me.
Thanks, Monica.
Any other questions for Mildred?
Any questions about the report?
I had a question, but I emailed it, and it's fine to get a response via email.
Yes, Dennis, you sent it. Yes, we will follow up with it.
All right. Report from the Inner Arbor Trust Board of Directors. It was also submitted in writing. Okay. Going on. Financial reports. On to board action. Approval of the minutes by consent. Okay. We are on to the budget. Approval of the draft conditional 20 rates. Okay. So hopefully all of you either brought your budgets or anything, but it's section 10 in the book. So rates. Rate discussion.
I also have 2 hard copies if people are interested.
We could share one.
Yeah, we can share it. We're going to share it.
Is there anything you want to say, Susan, or any? Nope.
That's good too.
Any?
Tab which?
It's tab 10. Oh, I'm sorry.
Section 10.
Sorry about that.
10-1, 2, and 3.
No, but I got Coke on that.
So the so what we attempted to do with what we proposed was to address the challenges that we have on the operating costs and to do whole dollar increases so that sometimes the percentages look odd, but it's a whole dollar increase, so it's not dividing 25 cents by 12 months. That's a minor thing, but we did do that. You'll see most of the changes are in the 2 to 3% range. The phase-in, the CA Fit and Play, that's the package plan phase-in or higher. That was, if you remember, that was the 5-year phase-in of that membership. That membership was eliminated, and as it existed, it had benefits added to it, and we phased in the cost over 5 years. The Play membership changes for non-residents is higher than what you're used to seeing for new members, and that really the challenge there is with the increase in minimum wage has been significant. It was a 9% increase over this year in July, and other operational costs. So that, and we know that those memberships are far undervalued compared to market and other area swim clubs. And we also wanted to, in some cases with the outlying pools, there's an issue of overcrowding and non-resident use. Like about 40% of the visits at Dorsey, for example, are non-residents, and so it's just was an attempt to make the experience better for our residents at a lower cost. So that's just the overall philosophy and the approach that we took. In the fees, the daily fees, you'll see that all of the costs to play golf at Fairway have gone down. Most of those decreases are double digits, and we also decreased the green fees at Hobbits Glen. Because the conditions were challenged last year with the winter kill and the rain, and so it just seemed appropriate to reflect that and to also make it more competitive with other area courses.
Great.
Just something about the pool membership, the Play membership, making the experience better for our residents at a lower cost. You're not proposing, though, reducing the resident rates, right?
No, at a lower cost than non-residents, to not increase it so much, right?
I mean, there's still a 5%, 3.1, 3.8, depending. 5% for what families? You're going to hit them the hardest?
Well, it's $2 a month, and it's the price is so low. It's 5%. Yes.
Yeah. But then. Okay, just want to clarify that when you said a lower price, it's not.
Yeah, no, I didn't. You're right. You're correct.
All right. Any other questions, Alan?
I guess
Go ahead.
I'm trying to make sure I'm remembering properly, but I thought Dan has said that lowering rates doesn't help in terms of gaining members.
Right.
So if we presumably, and this is an assumption on my part, next year we won't be having the problems with the greens and the fairways and the whatever else happens at a golf course that was problematic. Why would we lower fees for next year when they're going to have a good experience, when lowering fees doesn't cause people to stick around?
So so that was the motivation for Hobbits, because it was just so bad this year. For Fairway,
but that doesn't answer my question.
I'm sorry.
Next year presumably won't be so bad, and these are fees for next year.
It's just to recognize that what people went through this year.
But giving them a kickback, or that may be a bad word, but
That's a bad word.
A rebate,
Just to acknowledge that this wasn't a good year. We wouldn't. I don't know what you would do in retrospect, but to just be acknowledging that this season was difficult.
Well, one way.
And then for
one way
Fairway.
would be give them X number of months no charge would be another way. Anybody who's been a member.
But this is basing it on play. So this is if you as you play, we make it that easier. So for Fairway really is a public course and faces a lot of competition, even into southern Pennsylvania, and those costs are very competitive. So we looked at that and lowered them for that reason. But Hobbits is conditioned. Yeah.
So if you said that they're very competitive, does that mean that you're in the median of the competition for Fairway?
I would have to look. There was a comprehensive. We do a market study, and I do not recall exactly where we were.
Okay, all right.
And look, this is time for play, not the membership. So it's a little bit different line of thinking.
So well, I understand that it may not be a one-to-one correlation. If you lower this, either overall sports and fitness has a lower revenue stream, or you've raised something somewhere else to accommodate. What went up when golf fees went down?
So the golf fees were already, because the play was so impacted by the weather, they were already low, and we already considered that in this budget. The memberships. So what? These fees are reflected in the budget that's before you. So anything else that's done would have an impact on those numbers.
Amateur when it comes to budgets. There was a certain amount that sports and fitness had as a budget for last year. And if we're proposing to lower the rates for golf, green fees, that'll give them less.
Their membership's good.
So what, are they just going to have to make do with less, or did we raise fees, something else that goes into sports and fitness somewhere else to account for that?
So for golf, the projected usage is better. We project the usage to be better than this past year. Hopefully the weather will cooperate, but we're projecting that. So this is really volume driven more than value driven, if that is any sense.
So if the market is that the number of golf courses in the Washington metropolitan area are overbuilt, we have too many, and the number of rounds are dropping by, I think they dropped 13% over 5 to 7 years. How can we expect more volume when the number of rounds being played annually are decreasing?
So this is volume related to what we have historically had, right? So I don't. I'm sorry. I don't believe that our rates have dropped that much. The 13%, the rounds has decreased that much,
right?
But so I think we're looking at two different things. So we have definitely the industry is in a challenge,
right?
But our golf courses, especially Fairway with the flood in May,
right,
had a significant issue, and that we expect to regain some of that volume as we had previously. So there's an industry thing and a situation here in Columbia with the weather this summer. We had to close the course and reroute play for a period of time.
So may I ask one further question, and then I'll be quiet. So has there been any additional consideration given to putting Fairway Hills on some of these golf apps where you can log on?
It's on Groupon already.
Well, beyond Groupon, there are several golf apps.
I believe it is, but
okay, because the last meeting they said that it wasn't.
Okay, I'll double check on
Would
that.
you? Thank you.
Yeah.
No. Well, that was a point I wanted to bring up, and we made the decision a couple of years ago because Fairway Hills is more of a public golf to this is my term, subject it to Groupon. And that's something that we're still evaluating because I don't know whether that's a good move on our part or not. It's something we were ongoing evaluating because I'm a big believer that there's a value for all services. And if you keep lowering that value, that's going to be the expectation for someone whenever they come there.
And I do stand correct there. We do use 4UP. Are you familiar with 4UP?
I don't know.
Okay, that's one of the golf apps.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think I'm correct too in that somewhere within a year or so we are going to reevaluate Fairway Hills.
Okay.
I mean,
yes, we do have
so you know, it's a question of where do we go forward with Fairway Hills in the future.
Right.
But this is just for next year.
Right.
Any other questions? Sherry?
I just had a question about the income qualified memberships. Is it okay if I switch over? So it was $56,800 for an individual. So someone with an income below that pays 50% membership.
Right.
Okay, and 64 for a family that's just 2 people and a child. Is that how that is?
Yes.
defined?
Well, it's a family size of 2 people. That could be a couple. It's a parent and child. It doesn't. It's
okay.
Yeah. It's just 2
Okay.
people in the household.
Yeah, and approximately how many people used this last year?
So we have. Let's see. I brought that with me. As of the end of January, which you'll be getting the financial report in early March, we had 1,388 income qualified memberships. So I don't know the number of people that relates to, but that's memberships. And then if you're familiar with the points, CA points, that's the program in, I think it's a dozen schools or so, where kids can earn points towards a CA membership for their family with like attendance and grades and stuff. We have 706 of those right now, and those are free.
And the income qualified discount is off the new member rate, right?
It is right now.
And not off the renewal rate.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with that. Can someone do that if they do it it's a 1 year and then they can apply again the next year, so they apply every year?
Right. Yeah, like and there's you have to requalify every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And their family size changed too, so.
What do you have to do to earn the points?
It's the kids do. I think one of the main things is attendance. There's grades. I think there are other attributes of their school performance that.
Is this? I'm sorry. Is this for the parents and the child, or
Family.
just the child? For the family.
Family.
That's excellent. I love that.
Yeah, is that program based on income though? Just anybody can, regardless of their income, their kid can do X, Y, and Z, and they get a reduced rate?
Or is it only at certain schools?
It's certain schools, and we have the partnerships with the schools. Let me just find. I think I have that handy.
So it's not income related?
I think it's in the schools that have a certain participation in the lunch program. But let me just.
So there is an income element.
Yeah, there's an income element.
In the school.
Well, only if it applies to the kids that are on
The
free and reduced lunches, because like take Stevens Forest, you got people that are both. It's 67% free and reduced, but you got the others.
Sure, but they haven't picked the schools randomly. They pick schools that have high foreign populations,
Right.
expecting that you're going to have a higher percentage of kids and families that.
But what I'm trying to ask is, the other 33%, or in some case 50%, or some case, also can qualify for this program even though they don't have an economic need?
Yeah.
Is that
I have to confirm that. I don't know that. I'm sorry.
I think what you really have to do is go back and find
Could you-
what
yeah.
the
I'd like-
parameters are for the CA points.
Yeah, not tonight. I mean, we're not going to get the answer tonight,
So-
but I'd like to know because that's
I think
questionable in my mind.
Our
anyway.
media person knows.
Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Hi, David Greisman. I have the points booklet from last summer, and it says that these are only to be given to income qualified students. You must be a participant in the free and reduced meal program at your school, therefore meeting the income guidelines.
Thanks.
So it is income based. Thank you very much. Okay.
There you go. Thanks, David.
Now I no longer have a problem.
Feel better?
I do. I do.
No, it's a nice program.
That's great. Yeah.
What rates do we charge employees of companies that are on an annual charge paying property? Which rates do they pay?
The associate.
I used to get resident
10%
rates when
off.
that was my situation.
Yeah. There's a 10% discount. Lynn is telling me so.
10% off of what?
Is it off the non-resident rate?
I would think so.
That's
Yeah.
the reason they're being given the discounts. They're working in Columbia, so it's a resident rate.
They,
So you're getting 10% off the resident rate?
because they work. What about?
They get
I'll
the
have to
resident
confirm
rate.
that. I don't know, Greg. I'm sorry.
Because it occurred to me this week that we never see those rates and to even consider them. As Milton has brought up that we need to do a better job, and I think he's right in a lot of ways, reaching out and providing a benefit to these companies who are paying the annual charge. I'd be interested to know what benefit we're offering.
Yeah, I thought it was the resident rate. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was my understanding, but I'll double check that. I thought they got the same rate as if you lived here.
Yeah.
All right. Any other?
I do have a number of motions. Is that
Sure.
what you're asking for?
Yeah.
You're asking about
Yeah.
discussion about that.
Well, I mean, any other discussion? Then we'll get to Greg's motions. Any other questions for Susan? No. Okay, Greg.
I would like, I'm not going to drone on about it. I would like to make first the motion that we reduce the fitness facility and pull resident membership rates by 10%. Just understand what this motion is. This is not 10% all memberships. This is 10% on just the fitness facility and the pool resident rates. This would apply to the Fit and Play, the One Fit, and the Play memberships. Will not affect what staff has proposed for the Haven, golf, and tennis. Okay? That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Alan?
Isn't tennis included in the?
Right.
Oh, whatever it is. All those non-memberships. I thought tennis did have a separate membership at one point.
It does not anymore.
Have you? And maybe I've seen it and forgot calculated how much, or
Yes.
staff to calculate what this.
What Dan calculated last time, I believe, is about 2.2 million, something like that. This would be more in the realm of between 1.7 and 1.8 million. And I'd just like to remind everybody, we never talk about this, but it seems like we don't, but we are a $74 million organization. That means our income every year is about $74 million. A reduction of 1.7 or 1.8 million is certainly not going to break our bank. I've said before that when you're talking about a family, with the rates with the increases that are proposed this year, a family Fit and Play goes up over $1,500 a year. And I say that because whenever staff gives us the budget, right, we see the small little monthly numbers. I wish we didn't see that. I wish all of us could see the yearly numbers. If you multiply by 12, new rate for a family over $1,500, that's a significant outlay. For an individual, it's over $1,000.
I'm sorry, Greg. What are you? Because the annual increase is here in section 10 also. And I don't have what did you say the annual increase was? I'm sorry.
15. What did you say?
Not the annual increase, the rate.
The annual amount
for the increase as proposed.
Okay.
Okay, is over $1,500 a year for a family membership, Fit and Play, new membership.
Fit and Play, so what is it?
All right, that's in addition. This is for residents. Keep in mind that's in addition to the annual charge they're paying every year. Okay, it's a significant amount of money, and I think it is for a certain part of our population a hurdle that many of them do not get over. Remember that if you look at our numbers and you see what's happened since the new membership structure has gone into effect and the increases and everything else, we have seen a very real departure loss of our Fit and Play membership. Okay, that's where we're taking the biggest hit. Somewhere around, I think, 2,800, 3,000 memberships we've lost according to the last quarterly report. And we've certainly gained back some One Fit and Play memberships, our lower price memberships, but that data certainly, but not as many as we've lost. And that data certainly suggests that price is a driver in this. Again, I'm not going to drone on too much about it, but I just think that this is something we, as an organization, we can afford. It gets us back closer to being a community service organization when we are only serving less than a third of our residents. For me, I have a problem with that.
Milton.
No, I think I still have the floor.
Oh.
That was all an answer to one of my questions.
Great question.
Oh, we forgot.
It's supposed to be timing.
Have you,
Yeah, you're supposed to.
have you thought about?
Remember.
Have you thought about? I agree that it won't break the bank, but have you thought about where this couple millions, million and a half, whatever it is going to come from?
I would ask staff to come up with that. I'm not going to.
Milton.
Well, if I may, to put it in a bigger perspective, Greg is right. Our revenues are about 73 million, but our income is about, we borrow to make up the difference. We're about an 82, 83 million dollar budget organization. And what we do, the board has approved over the last 3 years, and including what's being proposed, a $20 million capital budget. So anytime we reduce our income, we make it up by borrowing. And so we can go from we're roughly 8 million. If we keep reducing our income, we're going to have to borrow more as long as we keep our capital budget at the same level.
We borrow for operating expenses?
No, we borrow only for capital.
We're talking about operating expenses.
No, all of it goes into the same pot because we have a $20 million capital budget. We only borrow to cover $8 million of that. Everything else is from our income sources. And so if we're reducing our revenues,
okay.
if we're reducing our revenues, that means we're going to have to borrow more to keep doing what we're doing, especially with that $20 million capital budget.
So my last comment is, while I get your point, Greg, that only a third of, I'll accept the numbers, a third of the residents are members, have a fitness member of some kind membership in one of our, that's not our only way we serve the community. And so, for me, there's a balancing of where should funds go and what we should be using them for. So I'm absolutely with you on the intent. I'm just still pondering.
I mean, I'll tell you this. My next motion is just to keep rates where they are for once. But my goal in this is that the staff will have something they can use to attract more members. Okay. And because to me, just not increasing by 3%, 5%, whatever, that's fine. I'm going to make that motion. But to me, if you want to, it's just common sense. I'm not a marketing person, but to offer something else out there to try to retain people, try to get new members, it's got to be something that has some oomph to it.
Nancy was next.
I do have friends who are considering dropping membership, and it's purely because of price. They really like CA, and they know that CA offers a lot, but it's gone up so much that they're not comfortable with the new costs. So I would make a friendly amendment to Greg's motion to say, rather than the 10%, I would amend that to say at current costs with no increase.
Sure.
I second that.
She just made an amendment.
Oh, Greg hasn't accepted it yet. She said she wanted a friendly amendment.
If it's not,
I mean,
if she can
basically,
still make it and somebody can second it, then that would be what's on the table.
Right.
And it becomes friendly. No, I'm kidding.
Renee, gonna
Well, what do you want to do first, Greg?
I'd like to, if you don't mind, get a vote on my 10%.
Okay,
and then
go
we can
right
talk about
ahead.
that.
Okay, but Sherry.
I just had a question about what Milton said. Milton, you said you talk about the $20 million capital budget. Do you anticipate that budget staying at that level, looking out over the next 2 years, for example?
Well, it's been $20 million over the past 4 years.
At roughly.
Roughly, it's not. I think we did some numbers a while back. It's going to eventually drop down because the biggest things we have is we're looking at our fitness centers. It was a swim center. So no, it's not going to continue indefinitely at $20 million. But it's just that we don't have a separate capital fund. There's nothing earmarked for capital. It's all revenues, and we pay our bills. And so the way we do it is that we have we borrow to make up the difference from our income, from our services and programs, and that's how we do our capital budget.
So we do short-term borrowing, and we also have the option of doing longer-term borrowing.
We can, yes, we can.
Okay.
But wouldn't you do better price-wise to have bigger bonds go out rather than several
No.
small?
No.
$10 million increments?
Susan, what did
Sorry.
you?
No, go ahead.
She didn't hear your question.
Oh, don't you do better when you go out in larger increments on your bonds rather than smaller bonds?
Absolutely. I don't
Larger
understand the relevance of that, but so
Well, because you're doing interim borrowing to get to a dollar amount where you get the optimal rate on your bond issuance, right? In other words, you're not going to go out and borrow $8 million.
the issuance costs don't make any sense at a smaller amount. But I don't think that's a
We don't have any outstanding bonds now, right?
No, right. That's what I'm saying.
term loan. Yeah.
Right.
That's,
Well, what we've been doing is short-term borrowing, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
the interest rates are significantly less than long-term borrowing. No.
and I'll be quick because I made this point the last time. One of the things also I want us to keep in mind is that we provide a lot of different services to the community. And when it comes to sport and fitness programs, and we don't expect for them to pay for themselves. And so, once again, as I said before, we have to have some programs and services that make money so we can offset that. The 23 outdoor pools, the ice rink, the swim center, all those things that we have to offset in some way. Right now, the 3 fitness clubs, they do make money, and that's how we offset all those other services we provide when it comes to sport and fitness.
Right.
Just one response to that. You know, my calculations of whether it's 1.7 or 1.8 million, that assumes not a single membership is gained. Okay, so to the extent that staff can use this in conjunction with all the other things that staff is doing, obviously with the improvements we're making in our facilities, putting managers and selling more memberships on site, you know, all those things that staff is doing, to the extent that we gain, then obviously the impact of this is mitigated. So again, this is like the worst case scenario in my view, is the 1.7 or 1.8. But it could very well be quite a bit less.
Jenny.
Yeah.
And then Susan.
Okay, just 2 quick concerns that I have, again, since this is at the last minute, is where is the money going to come from? The second one, though, is I thought Dan told us that in their exit interviews, the price wasn't really the problem. The problem was maybe how you package things, the product, etc. So that's my concern so you reduce it 10%, you get what, $1,350 versus $1,500 a year, but you still, and we'll have to find $1 million from something else that we all want. But will it actually mean more memberships? And there's only one way to find out, I'm sure, would be the answer. But I don't think, if we're not hearing price is the issue, then we're dealing with something we're not hearing is really the issue. I know what you said, Nancy, yeah. But I keep asking every time, what do the exit interviews show? Now, maybe we're not doing the exit interviews properly. I don't know.
Well, people don't want to say.
So
they don't want to say it's price.
Right.
Many of them did say it's price.
Well, people have told me that, but they might not be comfortable saying to people they don't know that it's price.
Susan.
So in the last 3 months, the sales have, since November, actually, sales have outstripped last year significantly, including for the CA Fit and Play, and this is without that discount. It continues to grow and to become a more popular option than it had been. I think we had really no sales process. We significantly improved the value of that membership. We took the doors off the plus rooms and made we're making the facilities better, and it's showing in the increase in memberships. And I don't have the sensitivity for pricing for that, but a $2 million, the 10% reduction on everything is about $2 million. And then to exclude Haven and golf, they're relatively small, right? You know, it's so it doesn't make that much difference. We would need almost 2,300 new memberships to make up that difference, and that would be May 1, as you know, because this is a monthly contribution. So if you don't get 2,300 May 1, then you need 3,200 by the middle of June, by the middle of the year. So I think that price is always a factor, but to correlate sales 1-for-1 to price is not accurate.
I'm not doing that.
Okay, and we would have to come up with the savings for that from the operating budget very soon. You'd need to figure that out very soon, where that $1.7 million reduction in revenue is going to come from.
All right, Milton.
Now, the only other point I'll make, and then I'll be quiet. And then we have a state legislature that's posing a minimum wage on us that we're going to have to deal with.
Right. And we know that's happening. There's some.
Greg. Okay. And then Dick. And then that's it. Then we're going to take a vote on the motion.
In response to Ginny's point, I think you've slightly misread what Dan presented as far as the exit interviews. Cost was one of the top factors, I think the top 5, and then there were actually 2 others, like change of circumstance, like that were financial related, change of circumstances. And remember, that's number 1. So cost was an issue for a percentage. I can't remember whether it was 10% or whatever on the exit interviews. But keep in mind, those are just exit interviews. Why are you leaving? One thing we can't do is ask people, why aren't you joining? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the young family. We don't know why a young family is choosing not to say, I'm going to pay $1,500 a year. And again, I can just tell you from what I've heard anecdotally, and probably others have heard anecdotally, I don't like making decisions based on anecdotes, but it's more just the ways of the world and priorities in young families and just what many of us have been through. Price is a factor. So that's number 1. Number 2, something Susan said, I should have written this down, not a good debater. As far as how many memberships we have to gain,
2,300.
2,300. Again, I'm not, my figure is slightly, it's less than that. And again, the fact is that this is going to be a point that we can use to market and to increase. I acknowledge the recent increase, uptick. But what we don't know is whether that uptick, we can't say it's a trend. We can say it's a very good thing. It's a very good piece of data for the past 3 months. Is it going to continue? I don't know. Maybe it's just a sort of a one-time blip. Gee, they went in, they've seen, all the people who've seen how nice our facilities have improved. We've gotten all them? I don't know. But I can't believe we would make a decision based on something that's happened in the last 3 months when we have a far larger trend as far as what's happened in the last 5 or more years.
Susan.
So the attrition, the reasons people leave, the top 2 reasons are moving and not using, and we're consistent with the industry on that. And overall, it was 25%. With new membership sales, we have a new sales leader who's been here about a year. He's got national experience in the sport and fitness industry. We asked him, Mike, what are the issues? He continues to say that the price is not a barrier to sales, and that's new sales. That's not renewals. And he'd be standing on this table and complaining about it if it were. So, and I ask him every 2 weeks when we meet on this.
Janet, now let's take the vote because
I just had a question on membership.
Okay, sorry, Dick.
for-
I apologize. Yeah,
They have to be a member, correct? Or do they just have to be a CA resident?
No, neither.
Oh,
You don't
okay.
have to be a resident. And in fact, because the programs are in the Howard County schools, we can't differentiate in the charge. It's the same charge whether you're a CA resident or not. No.
Okay, Dick and Lynn. Dick.
You have a point there. In my experience, whenever the marketing people are talking to the salespeople say lower the cost, and then we'll get more sales. We do have a program that seems to be working. I'd like to give it some time to see if it continues to work. I think staff has come up with some nice little discounts, some things that make sense, that make this more attractive. I don't like just giving discounts that are not based on need, and if people can't afford the membership, maybe they do have maybe they can get a qualified some qualifications.
Okay.
I don't see any evidence that lowering the cost would increase membership. And we have a very attractive deal right now. We give resident rates, which are below market cost. And so we're already doing people a favor. So I just I just can't see getting in here and arbitrarily lowering our rates.
Lynn.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think again, especially we keep talking about young families. You know, when I look at young families, and you know, I still have young families in my family. So many, mostly two-income families. They are so busy, they don't have time to do. I mean, it's more of a time thing than it is, I think, a financial issue. The kids are in sports. Kids are out all night. Kids have 2 practices a night sometimes, all weekend. You know, I think it's more the lifestyle. It really is different than it was probably 15 years ago, certainly, you know, when I was bringing my kids up. So I think that when the emphasis on young families, there are so many things that young families do. What I see is that they're just, absolutely, they don't have time. I think that might be more in that generation. I mean, older people, that's a different thing. We have time.
Okay, let me call the question on Greg's motion, which was the 10% reduction, right, Greg?
10% on just the.
That's just the
president.
Right. All those in favor? Greg and Renee. Oppose. Abstain. Okay, so Greg and Renee approved. Alan abstained. Everybody else voted no. Let's do it that way. It's easier.
Now, can I make my...
Sure, you can make your motion.
So I would like to make a motion that we do not increase rates for the upcoming year on the memberships, except for the Haven and the golf and various golf packages. Leave those alone.
So same thing as mine, just hold them steady.
Just hold them steady.
Golf is going down, isn't it?
No, just the green.
No, this is rates. This is the rates, not the fees.
You mean rates for all
Well,
these?
you can drop the golf rates. I don't want to make any changes to what's been proposed to the golf and to the to Haven. I'm just talking about the rest of it.
You mean
I'll
fit,
second that.
Just fit and play, or do you mean
the fit and play?
Fit and play, fit and play, one fit.
all of them?
Right.
And I seconded it.
What's the cost?
Jenny?
What's the cost of that?
Right. I calculated it's about $430,000 as best I could calculate it.
Oh, please, if I may, Greg, with all due respect, I would like for us to have an opportunity to calculate. No, Greg, we are the one that put together the budget, and so I would like, if the board is going to do that, it's the board decision, but give us an opportunity to, if you want to know what the cost, the impact would be, that's one thing. If you're going to go ahead and vote for it, then we will deal with it. But Greg's number is not a number that we can use.
Well, if I could finish on the point why I was asking that question. It'd be nice if when we're starting a budget, we say you will keep your rates and not increase them or whatever, or you will reduce them 10% at the beginning so that staff has a chance to kind of figure out, well, I can't put in for this, I can't put in for that, and tell us what it is that we're losing so that we have months to really think that through. The last minute thing that occurred last year, and that was my first experience with a CA budget and is occurring again tonight to a significant extent, it is impossible to figure out what we're going to be losing. Now, we'll find out in the next, I guess, week or two if these things pass, but it just doesn't seem the right approach to a budget, and, you know, I'm just having a problem with it.
Alan.
So, Susan, as you're putting together these percentage raises in rates, how much new income were you projecting they would bring in?
I think that Greg's pretty close on the effect of a rate change. But let me, a little bit. Let me see. Sorry. I don't do it separately between rate and volume, or I don't have that handy.
Were you anticipating that the raise in rates would lower volume?
No.
Were you anticipating it would raise volume?
I didn't anticipate that the change in rates would have any impact on volume. We're looking at other reasons for those sales program and programming changes and improvements to increase volume. So I didn't anticipate the rates
Sorry,
impacting.
didn't mean to interrupt your
No, that's
your
okay.
search.
Sorry.
Andy, if I could.
Well, if you could be looking and
I just
Sorry
want
about that.
to say that I think that, to be fair about raising it tonight, we have brought this up before, this budget season, the question about the rate. So this isn't the first time it's been brought up. It's been the first time that motions have been made about adjusting them, and that I agree with. But I also would like to remind everyone that we do have more properties that are coming online from which we will be collecting the liens this year, I believe.
We already budgeted for that in the 2020. That's already in there, and between what we found in what we presented in February, last year, and this year, just take a look. We're only anticipating an additional $170,000, which is a very small increase, very small, and we're seeing an increase in abatements. We just had a large commercial abatement, unexpected $30,000 reduction. So there is nothing new coming on board on those for the annual charge in 2020 that we had not already picked up. In the tenable building that everyone's anticipating, we do not have, our sources indicate that that's 2021. And we also, we have we just are seeing a greater increase in abatements a volume of abatements and dollar value than we have in the
What are
past.
abatements? What do you
Those
mean?
are people who are protesting or contesting their property value with the state, and how then that impacts their CA annual charge.
Okay, so it's a potential,
Yeah.
if they're successful in their appeal.
Right. Well, so we don't see the appeal. We just see the success. When they're successful, we get the lowered value.
So the 30,000 was a real successful.
Yes, it was. Yes. And
What do you expect to get from tenable? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
Because it has to be assessed.
Well, yeah, we could estimate that, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
All right, any more discussion?
And
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
So if that, I would say that it's probably closer to 500,000 on your change. And again, you give us some guidance on what's gonna be offsetting that, because certainly a change of 2 to 3% is not going to drive any volume. I'm sorry, it will not.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so if it's 500,000, we have a couple of big items that have been added as far as amendments are concerned. So the question for the board would be, could any of those things be postponed until the following year and we hold the rates where they are? That is one possibility. The other concern looking forward, and this is where, Ginny, your point is very well taken. What happens is if we approve these changes, this then becomes the floor for the next budget cycle. And generally staff comes in with an increase. So we will be looking at an increase with the next budget cycle. That's traditionally the way it works. So we have never actually, to my knowledge, debated establishing a policy to cap an increase, or to, as you're proposing, say that for a 2-year budget cycle, we're going to hold rates where they are and evaluate through a 2-year process what increases have been and what memberships are doing and what fees are doing and the rest of this. We've always done this every year, and that just occurred to me that maybe that is not a long enough cycle for us to be able to really determine. So for example, you have the sales force now, and I'm very happy to hear about the increase in memberships. But if we increase rates to this degree, we can't separate out what was rates and what was membership and what the cause and effect is, because all of this is rolling all the time and it's all jumbled together. So I'm just going to put that out there. That's why, Nancy's proposal about holding the rates steady, would that allow us to get a better perspective on what happens with X amount of increase in memberships, or what happens in other areas, so that we could actually know something and see something about that?
Susan?
So I think that we do that kind of thing with the price sensitivity study, and you do that holding the. I don't think you want to experiment with that in real time. So we would do a study, and that's what we would propose doing that this spring and summer, is a real price. We haven't done that in a while, and actually test the market for what their price sensitivity is. So that would be the right thing to do there. And just I don't know what I'm concerned that you might be mixing capital and operating as far as the big things, the big amendments that you're talking about. The operating amendments are pretty small, and we've got some expenses in there also, and there are I do know what you're saying. There are some bigger things. So, but if Milton is saying that we're looking at one pot, yeah. So we are as far as generating the cash for those investments, for the investment in capital, but we still have to make the operating results meet our budget. So this is a direct correlation to operating. If we hold the rate steady and it's approximately $500,000, then we need very shortly to come up with either $500,000 of additional revenue, and I don't know where that will come from, or $500 of operating expenses, and that means personnel, programs, rent, utilities, those kinds of things.
Or you could say we borrow it if we.
No, we would borrow for capital. This is operating.
Borrow
We
for
have to
capital.
adjust.
Or you could reduce your capital expenses. That is, we would have to reduce them dramatically to get a $500,000 change in depreciation and interest. I mean, it would be multiple millions of dollars.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. No, Lynn was next, and then Dick.
I think if we're going to go into or consider this kind of a change, this is something we need to consider thoughtfully, not at the end of a budget cycle, at the beginning of a budget cycle. Plan for it, plan it as a rollout to the community, what we're doing. I mean, to do it now, I don't even think it would be that noticed. I would think it would have to be done thoughtfully and comprehensively.
Okay, Dick. Dick was next.
While we're looking at this, we keep talking about our budget increasing. We have to take into consideration inflation also, and that's another factor in here. Things do cost more each year.
Yeah.
All right. Greg, and then I think.
Okay, a $74 million organization. With all due respect, Susan, you've been doing this job a long time. I have no doubt that you and your staff can come up with a way to balance out a 450. If it's 500,000, I don't think it's that high. But either way, if it's that high, how to come up with that to do what Nancy and I are talking about. And that's number one. Number two, Lynn, I understand this, but there's no better way to kill an initiative than to subject it to something like you're talking about. Let's study it. Let's set up task force. Let's come up with what's our comprehensive plan forever. Look, you don't need to be a meteorologist to know which way the wind's blowing. I mean, right now we have people that price is an issue. We know the condition that many of our seniors are in, many of our young people are in, and the fact is these increases. I mean, I'm going to call them arbitrary because in a way they are, right? I mean, we don't get a reason why the family members fit and play. Why it's increasing $3 a month, $124 to $127. Why isn't it $2? Why isn't it $4? I mean, we don't ever get an analysis like that from staff. We just say, well, they just do what they do every year, which is, well, we're going to shoot for something between, let's say, about 3%. and they come up with the dollars that correspond to that 3%, and that's what we see. This organization, again, is not going to fall by the wayside or anything close to it by holding rates steady for 1 year. I don't mind, Lynn, if you want to have this, whatever project as far as doing a study and whatever else, but let's hold the rate steady. We know this is an issue for a fair number of people. Let's hold the rate steady, and then if you want to do that, what you're talking about, fine. But at some point, we just have to stop doing this. It's not these periodic increases, and we get this. Well, it's only this many dollars per month, increase. Over the course of time, it does add up, and all else equal, it is going to cause some cohort of people to say either I'm not joining or I'm giving it up because I have other priorities in my life. And we are seeing that in our numbers that trend-wise have decreased over time.
Okay, Milton and then Ginny.
Just two quick points.
Oh, sorry, Alan was next. I'm sorry. Alan, I have you on my list too. Sorry, Alan. Alan, yeah.
I want to agree with Lynn, but for a somewhat different reason. Because for me, it goes back to me is we never, ever, ever in our budget conversations had the larger conversation of what do we want this budget to do? What do we want this budget to mean? What priorities do we want to focus on this year? It's just always totally transactional, totally operational, totally tactical. How many dollars here? $2 here, $3 here, $1 there. What's going to be the... And never do we talk the big picture. It's possible, in my mind, that the right answer is to raise the rates a fair amount, get more money in so that we can invest in things that need to happen that would actually bring in more members. Maybe radically change the kinds of offerings we have that would bring in new members. I don't know that that's the answer. I'm just saying it's possible that that's the answer. But we never have those conversations. We just keep sort of noodling around in this petty stuff, and the only time we can then talk about it is at a time like this when we got 20 minutes for the discussion or whatever, and we're asking staff for things that they're not ready to give us, and we haven't laid the groundwork for it.
Strategic objectives. Remember? Keep that. Okay. Milton, Ginny, and Susan.
I just want to believe that if the board make a decision like this, regardless it's $500,000 or $2 million, you want to believe there's some value add. Greg has already said that it's anecdotal that he believes that there's a correlation between price and membership. We have talked to you tonight about all the opportunities that anyone who wants a membership to participate. We have income eligibility. We have a Columbia pass. We have day passes. We have... If someone wants to be a part of the Columbia Association, have an experience in our fitness club, our pools, there's ample opportunities for them to do that. So I want to believe if we talk about anecdotal information or information, people are making choices. And one of those choices may not be to have a membership. Basically, we have the numbers to show. We have said it repeatedly. There's our interviews and the information we have. There's no correlation between the price of the membership and whether they're purchasing a membership.
Ginny, and then Susan.
Okay, I have a process question. If this were to pass, and let's just use the $500,000 just so we're communicating. We'd have a $500 deficit in the operating cost budget, right? If it were to pass.
Well, we wouldn't have a $500,000 deficit. We would just go in and reduce it.
My question is a process one about if that passes, immediately we have a $500,000 deficit. Now, in terms of the process question, does that mean tonight we do what Sherry was, I think you were the one suggesting, we look at some of these and cut these, which you got to get the votes to do on whatever it is, maybe somebody else's pet project, but you got to get the votes to do that. Or do we ask staff tonight to recommend some other cuts, or do we pass it with, pass it with a deficit ask the staff to come back in 2 weeks with how we balance it.
I would prefer whatever the board decision is. I prefer that you say if there's $500,000, then say Milton, deal with it. That's my preference.
Well, so I'm going to follow up since it was my question. Is that okay? The problem with that is you may cut my pet project, or Nancy's or Lynn's pet project, or Alan's pet project, and I will be happy about that.
No, if a board decision,
I think we need to understand what the process will be, guys. I just want us to understand the process, okay?
Okay, Susan or Renee.
Can I just back up for a second since I'm the new kid on the block? So let me just think through this for a second. So what I'm hearing is that, let me say this. From my perspective, the pools are what Columbia does best.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, yes.
Do the pools, and it's hard because I realize that they're mixed in, but do the pools basically make money?
No.
That's what I would say.
The outdoor
outdoor
center does.
No, it doesn't.
No,
It doesn't.
They think they do.
They think they do, but they don't. Where in the pool? Now I will say my kids did the pool thing.
Susan will get the answer for you. She's
Well,
routine.
ask the question. What's your question?
The question is, how much do the pools all lose?
$2 million a year.
$2-3 million.
$2 to $3 million a year.
All of the pools.
All of the pools, including the outdoor.
Aquatics.
No,
Aquatics.
Aquatics.
Our pools lose $2.5 million a year. Wow. And
then there's the
the
swim.
swim center loses about $800,000 a year.
Yeah.
And that's including a membership allocation from the CA
Right.
Fit and Play.
Okay, all right. And then how about, does that include the operating expenses of the other pools that are indoors, the therapy pools,
No,
Columbia
they're
Gym?
in their own clubs. They're in the clubs.
They're the
results.
clubs.
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand how
No,
this all works.
my response to you is that I really, as an organization, as a community service organization, I wouldn't dwell on that. You said the operative word. You said it's one of the best used amenities in the community. So we want to provide that and understand that we will have to offset it.
I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to like get a foundation for a decision. And from my perspective, like I said, the pools is the best thing that CA does. Sorry, I know there's tennis, I know there's golf. I participate in all these. My kid lived at the tennis courts, blah, blah. I mean, my daughter works at
She
the...
said it was her opinion. So
Right, but I'm just trying to understand the foundation of all this. So we're losing money on the aquatics department, which I'm fine. I understand you have to lose money when you're a community organization like this on things. Do we have enough members? Are these facilities being fully utilized? That's my real question. If they aren't, we really need to find out why. Okay, if I'm going to Longfellow Swimming Pool, is it really being utilized? I don't want to say to its capacity.
We have pool stats for every pool.
Yeah.
Some of our pools are very heavily used.
Right.
Some of our pools, there are more lifeguards
Then-
than there are.
Okay.
I always feel very safe in those pools.
Exactly, because you're the only one there.
No, we can provide that information. We
Okay.
can collect that.
So-
It brings you to feel extremely safe.
Okay, all right. So go ahead with the vote. I got where we're going.
Did you have a comment?
Okay, so next up was Susan. Did you were going to?
Yeah, so I appreciate your confidence, Greg, that I and my team can find $500,000.
No, it said so too.
No, I didn't say I could. I didn't say I would. I said if the board said, I'd rather for us to go in and find the dollars.
So we can do that, but we cannot do that and maintain. I really believe we will have to cut some services or programs here. And what we have, and what I wanted to say too, Alan, was if this hasn't been well communicated, and I thought we had this kind of overarching strategic discussion, at least to some level, in the summer when you approved the targets, the capital budget and operating targets. But this is strategically, this budget is based on the strategic goals of the organization. So you can tell too by the increase in the investment in open space, for example, over the past 5 years, where it's clearly been well communicated value and environmental sustainability. We've invested in those things that have frequently been at a premium for other altruistic reasons, and we've targeted the facilities. It's been acknowledged that they were not maintained to the level that people wanted. That's been a strategic objective to do that. Invested a significant amount of money in that. There's something that's not strategic, but you have to do. There's been greatly increased regulatory burdens, either through compensation and employee leave policies that have had to been funded, and also permitting has gotten extremely expensive. It's now a revenue source for Howard County, and there have been changes in the rules regarding pools and their operations and facilities, all of that stuff, and it's all. So if we haven't done a good job communicating that, that is what's been happening.
May I just respond to that since she...
Okay. Just fast, because it is getting...
My point is not that you all don't think well about what you're doing. The kind of strategy I'm talking about needs to come from us to be communicated to you, hopefully in discussion with you, not communicated from you to us. It's a different level of strategy.
And then so we worked really hard on this. This was very difficult, and some of to get to this target and to adjust for these changes. There's nothing in here that reflects the coming minimum wage increase. We will have to accommodate that somehow, and some other things that are challenging. And I do not have any ideas, and I will say I have zero ideas on how we would accomplish that tonight. So we certainly will work on that.
I have no ideas either, but
I just like to point out that the job of the board is to set goals and develop strategies. This is tactical, and we've set a goal for the staff to increase membership.
Oh, we got it.
That was one of our goals. We've been pushing them for increased membership.
Participation.
Whose goal are you talking about?
Okay, well, please let Dick finish.
And it's up to the staff to figure out how to deliver. And I think they have given us a plan. They've given us a budget. We have some very attractive things that we're going to offer, and let's let them do their job.
I just want to say, and I don't care if I have to withdraw. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. I think I'm feeling very frustrated at the moment because last year Greg brought it up at the exact same time as this evening. But we did talk about it earlier in the year. He brought it up last year, and we were going to talk about it during the year. It was never discussed. This is the first time that we've had such a long discussion about membership rates. So I do apologize because maybe it was up to me personally or up to Greg or up to any one of us to bug the hell out of Andy to say simply, we want this discussion and we want it now. But unfortunately, it never happened, and so here we are a year later.
Okay, I haven't had a chance. I just wanted, so for Renee, and actually Alan kind of hit a little bit. In July, we set the parameters that tell staff how to build a budget. We tell them how much we want in the capital. We tell them how much money they got to raise. How much. We give them the parameters, and then we kind of set them loose. That is exactly the time to have the discussion. How much, I mean,
asking for it, we never have rates.
We never talked about rates.
But we're talking about how much money they need to raise. When we set the parameters, part of that is how much money do we want you to raise versus how much in expenses, how much we're going to borrow. Those are the type of things, and that we do. It was purposely set up to do that in July so that it would give the board a chance to set the large parameters. Okay, and maybe we need to do a better job, and I will agree with that. But
may I have one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to vote against this, but I believe in it, and the reason I'm going to vote against it is because I think that this comes down to real, live strategic planning. I think that there needs to be some cuts somewhere, somehow. Either in what we're charging people to go into the gyms because it's getting expensive, what people pay as far as assessments because it's expensive, but I also believe that our employees need and deserve to be treated humanely, and that being paid a living wage or a fair wage is a human right, and that we need to do that regardless of legislation. So somehow, as a board, I think we need to sit down and make some tough choices, some that may force us to not be reelected, but to make those tough choices to set CA up for as an ongoing entity that's financially solvent, because this is just not working.
All right, I want to call a question because we got other things have to go. Okay, so the motion is a freeze on certain rates. All those in favor? Greg and Nancy, all opposed? Abstain. Alan and Renee abstain. Okay. All right. I would like to make a motion that we do accept 3 recommendations from staff regarding rates, which is to redefine the family membership, to include children up to the age of 25, and to create the college student 90-day 1/5 pass. I thought those were good suggestions which help us along. So I want to make that motion.
I'll second it.
What page are they on?
No, they were
Page 17
additions to the budget.
17 of the packet. The packet. 17 and 18 of the page.
Second.
Dick seconded. Any discussion? Alan.
I guess I'm still not, the change I've been looking for, and I keep hearing from Dan that it's in the works, I wish I had seen it tonight, is the one that allows, if you have a couple in a house, that one can have one membership, the other can have another membership. It just boggles my mind that we can't do that.
We are working on that, and it sounds easier than you think, but we want to know what the impact of that would be. So we just are looking at the data on the couples who are just using one club and all that stuff. So we're working on that.
Renee.
So is that something that we could change during the year, or do we have to wait 12 years?
Yeah, we can change that during the year.
Okay. All right.
Good question.
All right, sorry.
I have a question about the college student rate. So this would be replacing that 90-day pass?
Yes.
And what would be the yearly amount?
$165.
$165 for a year?
Well, it's
No,
a
it's-
3 month. It was a
Over here over the summer.
yeah. That was my understanding.
It's a 90-day.
Right.
90
The
days.
wise.
For your home for the summer.
You're home for the summer.
So this is just a summer thing?
Right, because a college student who lives here would be on their parents, or could be on a family membership.
Only up
to
to
26.
25?
Well,
The 25.
Up to 25.
If we approve it up to 25.
Yeah.
Because right now it's 22.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So there are lots of graduate students who are certainly over the age of 25. So this is, why don't we call it a summer? Why aren't we identifying this as summer?
okay, we can.
But they can take their 3 months anytime, right?
Right.
I mean, if a college student happens to be
Sure.
taking the fall semester off,
Right,
or
if
the
they're
winter
co-oping
semester
or
off.
something.
Yeah. I don't know
How
if
many
you wanna
times
limit it
can
to
somebody use this?
I do not know.
If they're currently
Did you mean? I'm sorry. How many do we
Off
have?
for the fall,
4 times a
and
year.
then they came back for the
No,
summer.
it's a once a year.
once a
We
year.
had it
Once
set
a
up
year.
as once a year.
It's
Or
a
that's-
once a year. So okay, so that 165, and then they would just pay whatever the membership is.
I guess the assumption. So
I guess what I'm saying is, when I read the Millennial Report, I think this is a good first step, but it doesn't answer what the millennials were saying as being the barriers for them.
It doesn't.
So I hope that this doesn't in some way replace our efforts to answer those issues around millennials, which were 17 to 35.
I don't think it will, because the millennials are being charged, the Millennial Advisory Committee is being charged with looking at this, so.
Okay, so this doesn't take any of that into account?
No, not at this point, no. They haven't started yet.
All right, any other discussion? Great.
I'm just confused about the third one. It's only a 90-day membership.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's only a $30 reduction off of what you already offer
Mm-hmm.
for those 3 months?
That's the plan at this point, yes.
The $10 a month. All right. Well, I don't think that's going to attract too many, but I guess it's better than nothing. What's the approximate expected impact of that?
We're not. I couldn't anticipate. I could not estimate that. We don't know.
Because it's so small.
No, because we don't have data of who would be using it.
Yeah, because if you did, then we could talk about adjusting that. Because to me, I wish that would be more significant. In fact, I didn't read the small print, I guess is what happened. Because I saw the title, which said it was going to be 50% off.
Those were your proposals.
Well, it looked like this was your proposal. Because it says, as a result, staff proposes the following for the budget. And then number 3,
sorry,
create a
that's-
college
okay.
student discount. 50% off the single, and I was getting excited. And now I understand after reading the small print, it's really only, it's not 50%. It's not even anywhere close to that.
I apologize. That's so. What we should have written in here, and that's my error, was that the bold is what you had, and the underneath is what we have, because we didn't have to redefine family memberships, for example. They already were that way. So that's an error in our memo.
Okay, and for the second, because I mean, so if I asked you, well, what's the impact of making it 50% off? I guess you couldn't tell me that.
No, I'm sorry.
All right. And for the second one, again, I just get lost in all the word salad here. But are you essentially agreeing with my proposal?
Yes.
Okay. And then the first one.
Up till turning 26.
Yes. Right. I think that was my proposal.
Okay.
And then for number 1, you're essentially agreeing with my proposal?
Well, we didn't have to, because that already is what is the case. But we had actually also proposed that, previously, that to reduce the price of a 2-person membership for a parent and a child under the age of 14, and then we moved it to 16. So that's in addition to redefining the family membership. That's item B.
Right.
All right. Any further discussion?
Thank you, though, for taking a look at them. I appreciate it.
The current 90-day one fit pass. We don't know. We don't capture like the birth date of the people who, when we sign people up for that, we don't get their birth date.
I believe that we do, but I didn't look into that. I'm sorry.
Because I guess, just as you were saying, we don't have the data. What was going through my head just before that was the only way that this kind of thing would really have an impact is if we could market it, if we could sell it.
So we will market it.
But market it among the list of a bunch of things is one thing, but being able to target and figure out who to market it to is another. So I'm just trying to figure out ways to. It's in your all hands.
Yeah,
but I really think that any of these changes can't just be a list of here's the new things. They've got to be targeted to whoever would be. If we're trying to attract new people, or on the one hand, or keep the people we got, it's got to be targeted to those people so they know what's changed.
Okay.
You're right.
Hearing no further discussion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to adopt these 3? Unanimous. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to make just one more motion, I think. Yes, one more motion. And that is that the senior discount is currently 10% on new memberships. Apply to renewal memberships as well.
Second.
Discussion.
Did you estimate this cost?
Janet.
What's that?
Did you estimate this cost?
I did. I estimated this at, we can just call it even 200, it's just under, but we call it $250,000 a year.
$250,000 a year?
A lot of old people.
Here we
Yeah,
are.
Kind of high, but I thought it was not high that way. But
Yeah. Well, Alan's first and then Milton.
I guess maybe it's what Milton's going to say, but I would like to hear a rationale for why we don't already offer such a discount.
Because what we've done for years and was approved by previous boards was that we wouldn't do two discounts. You get one discount, the lower of one or the other, and renewal's a discount and the senior's a discount.
This would be a discount on a discount.
On a discount, right.
all right, can I just?
So it's really almost, for me, in my head, it's more setting a different rate, and then that rate carries through.
My only question is why seniors? I just, if it's income eligible, that's one thing, but why seniors? Because you can have a $200,000 senior household, and they're getting a discount. And you can have, as Greg always talk about, the young family who does not have that income. They're not getting that income. We're choosing a demographic not based on their income, but based on simply the fact of their age.
Okay, I guess all Nancy and then Sherry and then
I think that we're making an assumption that a lot of people are rich here. I know a lot of old people, being one myself, and I can tell you that there are a lot of people who are living as retired teachers on retired teacher pension and on Social Security. They're not government employees, so they're not getting the government pensions. And there are a lot of people out here who are seniors who have nowhere near 100,000, much less 200,000 in income. But it's not low enough for them to receive the lower income. And I think that these are the people that are being forgotten.
oh, wait, Sherry and then Greg.
Now, just to give some history to this, when we first started talking about the senior discount, seniors were not being looked at all. In fact, they were being ignored by this community. So the idea was to try to bring in more seniors for participation, to highlight for health and wellness benefits. That was part of the strategic plan, that we connected and we had goals around health and wellness. So bringing in the seniors was important along those lines. I think the concern about a discount on a discount, the way you keep people loyal and you keep them involved and allow them to keep participating with their cohort and with their friends, is to allow them to keep the basic rate that they're comfortable with. I think it's better to get $1,000 than to knock somebody off because you raised it to $1,200. And that is the way people think when they're on fixed income. We had a senior advisory group. We had a report. We had a lot of discussion about it, so that there is material behind this. In the same way that we're looking at millennials, there was a lot of background material. I'm sure it's still somewhere here at CA in terms of the documentation.
Greg and then Dick.
Okay. We have the practice that staff currently does with as far as only applying to new membership rates results in a real strange situation. It results in if the senior goes out and gets a new membership, let's just say it's a single senior and she goes in and says, I want my new OneFit membership because I only go to one gym. She's going to pay discounted 10%, $615 a year. Now, if we use, that's looking at this year's rates. Again, looking at this year's
Greg,
rates.
would you mind using the monthly rates that are listed here?
I can't.
You can't. Okay.
I can't. If
Divided by 12.
Right, it's okay. It's $57 a month. Okay, is the rate at 684? So that's $57 a month. That's what you see on your page there. Discounted 10%, that becomes $615 a year. The renewal rate that's not discounted is $660. So the $55 a month. So the senior goes in there and the next year renews and pays $660. It'll be better for her to cancel her membership and start a new membership and get the senior discount again. I mean, it really is bass backwards what it does here. Another thing I'll say is we have a benchmark out there, and that's the Y up in Ellicott City. They have a senior rate. They have something called a senior family. Different facility, different offerings, I'm sure. But if you look at, again, the one fit, I'm trying to do the best apples to apples I can. They are, right now the single senior rate is $49 a month. We're at $57. If you renew, it's $55. So we're still more than the current discounted rate at the Y. That's just one benchmark. I think it's a valuable one, because if I'm a senior and I can at least have my mobility and I can drive, I'm probably going to choose the Y to the extent that cost is important. So, and this idea of, well, seniors don't deserve it, or there's some seniors living the yacht life or whatever we hear, and maybe they don't deserve it. So many organizations out there have rejected that. You go almost anywhere, there's a senior discount. Why? Because Nancy said a lot of them need it. The other thing is because it's a great marketing thing, people. I mean, wake up. Wake up. To say we have a senior discount that we say applies to everything, and you're getting it this year, it just gives people a warm feeling inside. Makes them feel comfortable with their membership. They want to renew. They certainly don't want to see when they renew, they get hit with an increase. Okay? So again, this is an easy fix. It's a modest cost, has a real marketing potential, and really goes after a part of our community, a demographic that, I for one and I don't want to get all sappy, whatever, but we have got to keep our seniors moving. We got to keep them happy. We got to keep them in place. We got to keep it. You hear this cliche about aging in place. This is one of those things that allows them to do it. Okay, that's why seniors are different. Milton, if you don't mind, with all due respect, I do think it's a target population. And a lot of these folks have been in this community for decades. It just, to me, makes a lot of sense. It's something that we can afford, and I see a real benefit to it.
Okay, Dick, and then we're going to take the vote.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Jenny, I didn't see your hand. Jenny, and we take the vote.
Every demographic has people who are hurt. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise a child. You've got young families who've got a couple of kids. That's a real burden. I have, they're young kids just out of college with $60,000 in student debt. And they're old people who are retired teachers. And we really need to make these things need-based. Now, I think Lynn can back me up on this because I see her at the gym all the time. There's no shortage of old people at the gym. And in fact, I today had to wait for a couple of machines because some geezer wouldn't get off. But anyway,
They
were
slowly.
stuck. Why didn't you help them?
Okay.
But anyway, if we're going to give discounts, let's make sure they go to the people who need it the most, because there are a lot of people my age and older who are doing fine. So let's keep it neat.
Jenny, and then we're going to take the
Yeah, actually, I'm really trying to understand the issue. If a senior has a membership now and they want to renew the same membership, okay, and they have a senior discount now, why would it be an increase in terms of renewing, other than everybody's rates have gone up?
Because they lost their 10% discount.
They don't get the 10%
The
discount.
10% discount
Is only for new members. When you renew, the 10% goes away.
Okay, and in terms of other people, when they sign up, they don't get the 10% discount, though,
They're not a senior.
because they're not a senior, so that's your point.
And that's my point.
Susan,
your
can
point.
you answer Jenny's question?
So what I can say, and that Lynn helped me, was that that is true. That is true on the OneFit membership, that where that works. But on all of the other membership, it's not the case. The renewal discount would be lower. So
Speaking to the mic,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So I think I can't speak to how the pricing ended up to that effect, but the problem is only on the OneFit membership where that would be the case. The other memberships, Fit and Play and the Play, it does not work like that.
Well, how does it work?
So the renewal discount would be lower than the discount plus than the senior discount, and we could calculate it for. Maybe we need to do a show you on the.
I'm sorry. Can I ask Susan continue? On the other things with the senior signs up, gets the senior discount, right? Are you saying then, with the exception of the fit, they still continue to get the discount?
No, what I'm saying is then the renewal discount is lower than the senior discount.
The new member rate.
You're saying the next year.
The new member rate for play is proposed to be $39 for a family. And if they got the discount, you take 10% off that, that's $4, that'd be $35 they pay their first year per month. If when they renew the next year, the rate itself drops to 30.
33.
33.
Right.
So that they actually would even be lower the next year.
Right. So
without taking so Greg's proposal would take 10% off of that, it would go from 33 to 30. They continue to get a 10% discount off whatever the established rate is. Susan's point is they're already going to be paying less their second year than they did the first year.
So the issue is with the one fit and the pricing for that, the way that Greg described.
And again, I picked that one just because that's where I think you have a fair number of seniors because of price, right? And that's the lowest price gym membership is the one fit. So if they're worried about price and they're already in the one fit, that's why I brought that up. But I think what Susan's saying is accurate. If they do a fit and play, then yeah, the numbers are better for the renewal.
For a play for all the senior tennis people, it's the same.
No, right. But again, we already have the discount on new. All this is going to do is extend the discount to renewal. And by the way, I think in one of the staff proposals we just approved, I believe it's going to have a double discount, right? On the on number 3, there is a double discount. So
and we did that so we didn't create another membership.
Right. So it's sort of this arbitrary. Well, we don't do we have discounts and discounts. Well, we can when we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So we do, Susan, 250,000.
Yeah, about 250.
All right, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor of extending the 10% discount to all the memberships?
On the fit membership, I think.
No, it's going to be on all.
No, he's gonna. I think he said all of them.
Memberships.
Yeah, he didn't just say one fit. He said all of them.
For seniors.
For
That's
seniors,
what
right?
so
Yes, for seniors,
Okay.
right?
And right, it would be $250,000.
$250,000.
I'm going to vote for it.
Okay, all those in favor? So Alan, Sherry, Nancy, Greg. Ooh, we're gonna have to write these down. Opposed? Lynn, Janet, Andy, Dick, Ginny, abstain. Renee. All right. I would like to move that we approve the submitted rates, fees, with the changes we've done tonight.
Second.
All right, I moved that and Dick seconded. Any further discussion, because we've been talking about these? All those in favor? Okay. Opposed? It's everybody but Greg. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the capital budget. As I mentioned in my letter, there were 3 things that people asked to talk about, and it will be yours. Okay. So one was the adding $75,000 for the Fairway Hill Bridge, and then moving the money from the Columbia-wide bridges. The question I think came up is that an increase in cost?
Page would be great, so we could look at that.
Okay, we are on 9.
The category, Columbia-wide bridge replacement, 915. Oh, so is it in front of it?
All right. Alan, did you have any questions on that?
I wasn't the one who raised it, so I just want to make sure I can see what we got.
Susan.
So the question, so back in the fall, I think it was, or in the summer, when the bridge was washed out, and there was a conversation about rebuilding it or not, and the board agreed that it would be rebuilt, knowing that it would then be a comprehensive look at Fairway Hills. So that estimate was for $250,000 total, and what we had in the proposed budget was $175,000. So this $75,000 is not additional cost. It's not like the project has an overrun. This is what the project costs, and this is what was presented in earlier in the fiscal year. Does that help anyone? Was that the question?
I think the question was asked. All right. Well, I'm going to
75,000 is being pulled from other
From-
bridges.
Yes. So the thought was that it's a bridge. It was the next closest thing in category, and we worked. Dennis and Dan worked on that together, and that was what we came up with.
So the 2019-2020 other bridge budget was going to be 365, and now it's down to 290. Is that correct?
Right. And is there other bridges that you would be doing with the Category 3 funding as well? Okay, so.
Sherry.
All right, so we had asked about the cost as far as other designs were concerned. Do we have any information about that? In other words, not just replacing the same thing that we had for the third time, but we were talking about coming up with different designs and what would be involved in that.
So the MDE wants the bridge to go back in kind without going through a long permitting process. But we did look at some other options, which we call in kind, which is what we settled on was a fiberglass bridge, which is stronger, will span a greater distance, is easier to assemble, and actually is a little less expensive.
Okay, and is it the kind of thing that if flood comes, it will go floating off someplace? Okay.
It depends how fast the water. We're not planning on any floods.
Yeah, no, the reason I asked this is because, and I think I had mentioned this to Andy, in the Pacific Northwest, they get flooding all the time. So I know they have different kinds of engineering that takes into account spring floodwaters, which are really raging up there, and it doesn't wash out all their bridges every year. So there's got to be a way of doing the engineering. I'm glad you looked at other materials. Thrilled that it was less cost, and let's hope we don't ever have to go through that again.
This bridge also has a smaller cross section. The beams underneath of it have a smaller, so they'll impede less water and less things will get caught up on them, we think.
So more water can pass underneath? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, thank you.
All right. Here, that's good. I move we approve the $75,000 switch.
Second.
Renee seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. All right. The next one up that people wanted to vote on was the Dorsey Search tot lot replacement, $130,000. Dick, would you like to say anything?
Well, you heard one of our residents earlier today. It's a neighborhood there where people are empty nesting and downsizing, and now young families are moving in. There's a large number of families with kids. It's a very active community. It's the kind of thing you like to see. A lot of, you go up there, they're all chatting, they're all doing stuff together, and it's something I think we want to encourage. We're looking at this as a pilot for other communities where you might get rid of a few of the old beat-up tot lots and put in something nicer like this. I think the materials that we're using are going to last a lot longer than the materials that have been used in the past. I think it's a terrific idea, and I hope you'll all bring your kids up to try it out.
Sure.
Yeah, the reason I asked for some discussion about this is I think you heard what Dennis said, $130,000 as opposed to the traditional way we have replaced things at $45,000. That's a big difference. So, again, going on reinforcing what Alan has said, we have never discussed, the board has not discussed a policy or a position about what we're going to do about tot lots and what our strategy is going to be for the future. So I am not opposed to this community having that nice tot lot. What I would like to ask is that, again, we do not wait for the budget process to have this discussion about what our strategy is going to be. The same thing has happened with the pools. We have had an increase in the, I don't want to say extravagance, but there has certainly been an expansion on what has happened with certain pools have become really terrific. They're drawing in a lot of people. That's really great. We never really had a discussion on it. And they're way, way, way costly as far as renovation. And now we're coming back around to, well, you know, maybe we need to get rid of other things. We're not really talking about how are we going to maintain the assets that we have, and are we going to switch our perspective or our policy? And I really think that that is a board policy issue. So if we approve this $130,000 and the next community comes back and says, we want what they have, is that where we're going to be? We have to be careful about this, and I would like to see, if we do approve this, that we come back in this next year as part of our strategy and planning and actually come up with a policy for what we recommend, the guidelines, and some guardrails for cost on tot lots.
Good. Ginny and Renee. Sorry, Renee.
I come from River Hill. We're supposed to be the wealthy ones. We don't have a playground, but we do have tot lots. And last year, I think it was last year, just finished, they put in a new renovated tot lot in River Hill. Could you mind telling us the cost of that?
It was more than $130,000.
Right. It was expensive. But we don't really have a playground. We have these tot lots. I will tell you that it's been in a couple months, not very long. But it's drawing a lot of kids out of their homes and families back to a playground or an almost playground where they had nowhere to go before. I agree it's a lot of money, but it looks phenomenal. And if you want to add property value, to me, that's value added.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying. In fact, I thought we did say we have a process, and I thought Dennis and Milton agreed to that. And I thought part of it would be, like, to give just Oakland Mills an example, if we look at an area and maybe one tot lot would be closed, and you have a bigger one where the other one is, and there's more land, and it'll serve more people. So you sort of maybe giving up something as well, rather than have a lot of little ones. I'd rather have the big, big, nice, really big playground, as you call it. So that was sort of my interpretation of what is being worked on.
Well, that's what was presented.
Right.
What was presented is not a board discussion, and it's not board policy.
Right.
And so I think that's what we have to come back to. That's part of our responsibility and guides the not only our fiduciary focus, but also really helps the staff in the future.
I agree.
If we have a policy of some kind.
I was just going to, I agree with Shari. There needs to be a policy because, as I said, we have in my humble opinion, we have too many of everything. And we, once again, to harp on it, we spent $800,000 on the 1,500 square foot neighborhood center. We have to come, the board has to decide what's going to do with the neighborhood centers because we can't keep spending that much money on neighborhood centers. $130,000 tot lot, that's, with us having 165 of them, we don't want to send a message to the community that's going to be our practice.
Greg.
Yeah, I mean, Milton's exactly right. I think according to the website, we have 171 of them. So they apparently
Okay.
They're growing.
They grew.
They're multiplying.
It's had a lot of rain recently.
Yeah, folks, 130,000 is just too much to spend on one blessed tot lot. Fine, they can have a tot lot, but not this. I mean, this is, to me, and Sherry's exactly right. And gee, Lynn, I'm waiting for you to pop up because we need to have a comprehensive discussion. Because this is maybe we should. And you know why? Because Sherry's Village has you're the league leader. You have 29 tot lots.
Little ones.
29.
Little ones, and they're
Okay.
all wood.
Well, 29, and poor Dorsey Search only has 5. Okay, Town Center has 3. I mean, and then you got a bunch of people in between, and there are, Milton's exactly right, we just do have too many. So, if someone were to, during the budget process, come up and say, we're going to now add $130 for a tot lot, my question back was, okay, what tot lots are you going to cut now to make that happen?
Right.
And we haven't done it. And, I get stomped on for coming up with things, and I don't have how I'm going to come up with it. This is exactly the same thing. And no one's talking about what we had to cut to do it. It's just there. And it really bothers me. We have way too many tot lots. This is a very expensive one. And I think before we fund something, because it's going to become the precedent, okay? If the River Hill one already isn't. This can't be the precedent. We can't afford to replace tot lots for $130,000. We just can't.
Well, as you said, we only have 5 tot lots in Dorsey. And the other thing is, this is not one of the wooden ones that falls apart. This is a steel and fiberglass powder-coated tot lot that was going to last a lot longer. And Dennis pointed out that just doing repairs might be $40,000, but repeatedly, you're going to have to keep going in there and replacing timbers, replacing mulch, replacing benches and everything else. This is going to last a lot longer. And part of the idea was that we would be putting in larger tot lots that would get more traffic and getting rid of some of the smaller ones that are falling apart. And we did have this discussion earlier in the year. So I think this would be a very suitable place to put one because you got the kids there. We're getting the kids out of the house and giving them something to do. And I think you'd have a very appreciative neighborhood there.
Lynn, and then Sherry, Janet, Alan. Lynn.
I think the concept here, as presented, was a little different. They said it would take up kids up to 12, so really different than the conventional tot lot, which deals with tots. These are things that they have things that would deal with a much broader range of kids, and that's something that again will make them more valuable for families because they'll last longer. People will use them longer, and as they said, sort of a neighborhood gathering place. So it is a different concept in an area that, unlike, say, Kingston Contrivance, has 5 tot lots.
Sherry, you were next, and then Janet and Alan. And
Okay, I was just going to say that this is not really a tot lot. This is a playground.
Right.
So I think in terms of our thinking, at least if I'm remembering now what the presentation was, that there are multiple things to do, things to climb on. It's more like a playground in the back of a school or like any of the playgrounds that the county has created. So the only other thing I want to say about that is CA had tot lots because they were inexpensive and they were dispersed around in a community. The county was responsible in the schools for playgrounds and for playgrounds in parks. If we are building playgrounds, then we are taking on, in effect, in some ways, a county responsibility. So let's not lose sight of that. Again, I'm not saying that this should not be done, but if we go in that direction, we are changing the amenity that we are offering.
Yeah,
It may be very valuable to the community, and I really do hear that. And maybe because of the population changes, it's more appropriate to have those kinds of things now. But can we not call them tot lots?
Right.
Let's call them playgrounds.
Okay, Janet and Alan.
I was curious in terms of duration, what would the expected life of this playground be versus a typical tot lot?
Probably twice as long, probably versus 15, 20, 35, or 40 years of its steel, as long as it doesn't get vandalized.
Alan.
Kids would get pretty old by that time.
It'll be a senior lot.
So I want to ask a question. This 130,000 is put in as an amendment to the budget. What was removed or moved from the budget to allow this 130,000?
There was not a one-off.
No.
So it would be part of the other reductions. Probably what was in Category 3, the Category 3 allocation down at the bottom there, line 47. This isn't in your packet. This is a worksheet I did today that I thought might be helpful, but it's the summary information's on the left is the same.
Okay. Second, it goes sort of, people have spoken to it. We're caught in a little bit of a catch-22 in that if we don't have a policy, a plan, a strategy around this, so we risk the being a precedent without a set of guidelines. On the other hand, we have a community that needs it and is ready to receive it. And what would be the good reason not to let them have it? So let me just, it's been proposed that we have a policy, a plan. Has the staff come up with guidelines to at least guide your thinking around how you would approach?
In terms of this one, if every village had 5 tot lots, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Right. So that's why this one I thought made more sense than, if it came up in Kingston Drive to 29, I'd have some real second thoughts about just putting this
How
in
many
there.
of those 29 have been renovated?
I don't know that answer.
I think I could probably tell you over the past 10 years that I've been involved. So please, let's not. One of the tot lots has 2 of the rocking things and a bench. That's technically a tot lot. You can take a baby and you can put it on. There's nothing else that you can do.
And I agree.
So when you say 29, let's not.
I agree. That's
I have the floor.
Let's let Alan talk.
So number of tot lots already in the community would be 1.
We agreed, I thought, at the last meeting when we discussed this, that staff would come back with a plan to reach out to the individual villages to address tot lots.
Yes.
And I thought what I remembered hearing is, don't let it become the neighborhood centers.
Right.
And so maybe that refreshes your memory, but we talked about this specifically. And Oakland Mills graciously volunteered to be the pilot for the program. So out of that, we would create a policy. We'd come back to you in terms of how we're going to reach out to the community. And then we'd start with Oakland Mills, and we'd test run it there. And our goal would be to take some out of service and to put some nicer ones in. I mean, our goal, something that resonated with me was, and this is anecdotal, because one of my team members said, this was out in the community, they said, one of the moms said, I don't want to go somewhere where I'm the only parent and I have the only kid. I want my kid to have other kids to play with. And so we want to create meeting places for kids and parents in the community. It's probably not 29 in Kings. Maybe it's 5 in Dorsey. But I think that's part of this whole discussion.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yes, Greg.
Okay. Dorsey already has a large playground
at the pool.
Okay. You know, the plan, as I remember being years ago, is that every village would get its one playground, and then you'd have the satellite tot lots, as Sherry says. They may have only a couple things. But, you know, we all know what a tot lot looks like. There's variations on a theme, but again, one big playground, and then the tot lots. To me, this is giving Dorsey a second playground. And it's
we have a basketball court. There's no top on there.
I'm talking about your luxury playground, the playground that you have by the pool.
Guys, We're gonna have
We
to
have a pool.
wrap it up here.
No, there is a large-scale playground there.
I've never seen it.
It's over on the other side of the basketball court.
It's larger than a normal tot lot.
Yeah.
It's there.
Okay.
Totally.
You know,
Okay,
Harper's
let's let
Choice has
finish.
one. Hickory Ridge has one. You know, so again, this is setting, to me, a bad precedent with a large price tag attached to it. I have no problem with replacing this tot lot along the lines of a tot lot, but to put in a playground with that nice rubberized surface, I mean, come on. I know what that is. It's very nice, but these things are unnecessary to have a gathering place for families and kids to play. I just think this is too much money.
All right, we're gonna have to. So,
I'd like to move.
I will second it, but only if we add the stipulation that there are to be no more tot lot replacements until after the board has gotten approved a policy on tot lots. Because I want to give staff direction, which basically they can, if anybody else asks for them, they can say the board said no.
So until that time, we would be able to repair
You
in
can
kind.
repair. You can repair.
In kind, but we wouldn't do any wholesale replacements.
Right, but no full replacements like this. And of course, you can always come and ask the board if something gets wiped out. I mean, but that would be my amendment.
That's all accept that.
Oh.
All right.
All right,
Yes.
well, is there? I don't think I seconded that.
I did. I seconded it.
Your own amendment?
I asked Dick if he would accept it as part of his motion.
Okay.
And he said yes, and then I said I seconded
To
it.
respond to that, though, you know, it's $130,000. Why wouldn't we put at least a pause on the 130 while we're waiting for that as well? And that doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to get a plan and a policy and whatever else going forward, why wouldn't we hold off on the 130?
This project is shovel ready. The plans have been drawn up. The community's behind it. It's ready to go.
So,
Sorry.
I would support your amendment because I really don't want to disappoint the people who have worked hard in the community to get this going. So I think as long as we have a commitment to examine that, staff understands that repairs take place, but we keep focused on getting some kind of policy.
And as I said, I wanted to kind of tell staff their instruction is to turn these things down if somebody else comes up and asks until the board makes its decision.
You know the argument that's going to happen, though, and that is Dorsey Search gets all the stuff. They get the nice renovation, they get the big tot lot, and the older villages get crap. That's what you're going to hear, and I'm just telling you that right now.
And Dorsey's not even in Columbia. It's accurate.
That's
exactly what's going on.
It's not Newton.
So,
We're the second largest village in Hickory Ridge. We're not getting this.
All right.
Can I just ask one other question? Did this come before us before all this planning happened, or only after all the planning?
Only after. It was the community generated. Remember, the community generated this.
The community called me and asked me, show me what they've been working on. I visited the play lot on a couple of occasions, so I've been in touch with them, and that's when we brought it to Dennis.
Yeah. So it's important to remember too that this was Dorsey Search's request as part of the village. This is not a staff. I mean, the staff did not propose this. Okay. I mean, they helped with the figuring how much it cost, but it was Dorsey Search who actually proposed this. All right.
Is there any possibility that there's an older tot lot next to this playground, a potential future playground that could be closed? And then let the village board decide if they want this. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just asking. Okay.
Probably not. They only have 5. It's not,
Well, it's if there's one right down the street, and you're going to spend $40,000 repairing at some point, and yet all the people are coming to this beautiful new tot lot. Why do you want to spend anything on something that's within that distance? You know, I'm just asking.
I'm not that I would propose.
All right, Alan.
What's the pros and cons of saying to Dorsey, we need a policy? You will be first in line because you've put all this thought and energy into it once we get a policy. But we really need a policy before we disperse the funds.
That's a good.
My concern there is that summer's coming, and it could be a while before we get a policy. So I'd like to proceed with this thing.
How long does this take to construct?
2 months.
Would you be ready to go like you voted for tonight?
And so if we don't do anything until they have a policy, then that means we have to wait 12 months to appropriate the money?
No, we did that last year. We did it with money for paths for.
It means it just
Conditional?
can't spend it. They
Oh,
can't
okay.
spend it until
All right. All right.
the policy,
Based on the
which
policy.
would be next year because they're talking about a year's worth of, year
Right,
of
right,
policy.
okay.
My only recommendation is that I would like for us to look at it from the point of view that we're working on a policy, lesson learned with River Hill and Dorsey, and let's move forward with this.
All right, let me
It is.
Hickory Ridge, that's sort of falling flat.
I know, Greg, but I will agree with you, Greg.
We have a top lot.
We can't spend this much money on top
And
lot.
actually, I mean, this brings up a question, something that has come up before that I would like to put out there that to make sure that we include in our strategic planning, and that is that there is an inequitable distribution in a lot of ways, and so much of it is just based on people asking for a whole lot of stuff. And so at some point, there has to be something in place where we say no, and some things are more equitably distributed. You know, like we have neighborhood centers with original floors in them,
right?
And someone with a floor that's 10 years old got replaced. So it's like, I think that there's a much, much bigger issue here, and I do not begrudge anyone a playground because I know that they are very popular, and it's not that. It's just that. Just because someone asks for something doesn't mean they should always get it. And I just think that some villages ask for a whole lot of stuff and they get it all. And I don't understand that at all.
That's why you have to. It's up to the board. It's the board, whether the board's going to approve it or not.
It's not to the board. Town center's been asking for their elevator in Oakland for how many years? Apparently, they're not asking the right way.
They need to break it into pieces. They need some kids'
Yeah, I know,
generations.
but where is it? And I just say this too. If we approve this 130, the crisis is gone, right? The drive to get a policy is gone. If you want to keep the fire under everybody, to get the policy going forward, the best way to do it would be to table this thing, and that would at least keep Dorsey on everybody to get this policy done. Right now, once you take the crisis off the table, it's going to be
the pressure's off.
Yeah, the pressure's off.
All right. Well, I'd like to call the question because we gotta move on because we got a whole bunch of. All right. So all those in favor of the Dorsey Search Tot Lot with the amendment? I do. Alan, Renee, Lynn, Nancy, Dick, Andy opposed. Greg abstain.
Bill the vote on
No,
that.
I was raising my question.
He has heartache and heartburn.
He's allowed to vote.
He has heartburn.
Let me get this. Sherry, Ginny, and Janet abstain. All right. Let's move on, guys, because we have.
I guess I have one thing. If I could, Dennis, do we have an idea to address for Greg's current? Do we have an idea when we'll be coming back with our policy related to the tot lots?
It wouldn't be till sometime after the new fiscal year starts, sometime June. Well, so we're coming back first with a way to reach out to the community, which will then create the policy. This is going to be,
Greg,
I think, several months.
Let's look at it from this point. We'll be starting the budget process for 21 and 22 in July. We will have a policy that the board can work on prior to starting the budget process for 21 and 22.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. The next thing was the additional $50,000 for Lakefront Plaza. Any discussion? Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, I know. I had made a suggestion that we not put this in the design, but instead we put this as potential money to make improvements related to the neighborhood square, and just for that purpose. That was what I had suggested we do. Sherry.
All right, so I had a question. I was at a presentation by Howard Hughes, And so this is what I wanted to ask you, Dennis. When you were talking about permitting, that extra $50,000 for permitting, are you anticipating that when construction starts, when their construction starts on the memorial and the little, I don't know what to call it, parklet, whatever that we're going to call it, that there is potential damage that might occur to the wall and to the brick and to the area along the lakefront that is CA property?
No, if they damaged our property during the course of the construction, they'd be responsible for repairing it.
Okay.
So this is not to repair damage that they would do to our property.
Okay, so this is strictly for permitting this next year for something.
So the $50,000 is separate from the $100,000 that was for design and possibly for permitting. The $50,000 is to set aside some money so that when Howard Hughes and the county create the neighborhood square, CA can participate in that on the edge and do things to better
transition
the lakefront. It might be lighting. It might be improving that, what we call the Z-wall, that what's retaining wall that's down at the bottom. I'm not sure. We don't have any plans. I don't have any design. But I know for sure that Howard Hughes and the county are moving forward.
Okay, all right. I just want to say that my sense of this is that for this budget year, that is very premature. I'm just going to say that to the board. I don't think anything is going to occur there, and I would like to make a motion that $50,000 be dropped out.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Just a point of, I'm not sure what it is, but just so you know, if you make a motion that it be removed, then it's going to take 6 votes to approve that. If, on the other hand, the motion was to accept it, it would only take 5 votes to remove it. So
you're better off voting
better off
against it.
making the motion be to accept it.
No, I do understand. I do understand what he's saying. Is that
he is correct?
Is that this is like the way the budget is set up? So, what we could, what I was going to do was call a vote on this, and do you want to approve it? And if 5 people say no, then it's out.
Right.
Whereas if you make a motion, you got to get 6 people. All right. So I'll tell you what. I will make a motion. We approve this $50,000 for.
Do we necessarily need a motion on each one of these, since we said this was going to be our procedure? They were going to be up for a vote on each one.
You had asked that you wanted to vote each
up
one.
for a vote on each one. So do we need a formal motion each
Well,
time?
if you don't
Or
vote,
say-
it dies.
The motion is technically on the floor for each one of these.
But if you could go over without even voting one, it just dies
Unless
on
you
the
vote
floor.
for all of them at once, and that way you
I know.
I'm not saying do it at once. I'm just saying, do we need a formal who moved and who seconded?
Yeah, I know. Alan said, can we just assume that these are all motions, and then we vote on them?
Unless otherwise amended.
Unless otherwise amended.
Why don't we try it that way?
All right. All right. So
I withdraw what I
All right.
said, just
So-
to make it easier for everybody.
all those in favor of the motion, which is to approve the $50,000 for the lakefront. Okay. So that is 2 of 3. Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Just because he's not sitting in his own seat.
Andy, could you call
Yep.
Lynn,
Um,
Greg, Janet?
Janet, Lynn, and Greg. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, Alan, Ginny, Sherry, Nancy, Dick. And I'll just
Renee.
abstain. And Renee. Sorry. And then I'll abstain. 'Cause- all right, that's out. All right, now. What I'm going to do is nobody else wanted to talk to the other ones. The motion now is to approve all the rest of the capital project, and we'll do yours, that were listed. All those in favor of the other remaining capital projects?
Of the what?
Other remaining capital additions. All right. Opposed? Abstain? Unanimous. All right. Renee had a quote.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we take the $50,000 that we didn't use for the lakefront and set it aside as possible design funds for the aquatics department.
For the what?
Aquatics department.
Because they haven't
They have an
gotten enough
aquatics, huh? No, because they have an aquatics, my understanding is that they have an aquatics,
She's talking about an indoor pool.
right, where
Design
they're
of
going
a
to
proposed
rebuild,
indoor pool.
retrofit and
Retrofit.
rebuild an outdoor pool.
It's not going to get you anywhere close.
That's
No,
design.
just to look at the
Dennis,
design and the
Dennis,
cost.
I'm going place.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah,
They need some
I'll
sustenance to
second
get through
that.
this meeting.
I know the plan hasn't been approved yet, but if
What do
it
you
gets
want? I'll get
approved
it
in the
for
next couple of months, there's no design money here, so if that's your intent, I'll
That's
second
my
it.
intent.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
50,000 design money,
Subject to
for
the
a
approval.
possible, yeah, for a possible,
Possible.
indoor pool.
Yeah.
Okay, and Ginny seconded, Renee made a second, Alan.
I'll just say, I've been working with as the liaison to the Aquatics Advisory Committee, and I'm not sure exactly where they are in the process. I know they were hoping to see a design in February, and that meeting got snowed out or something.
They actually.
Or did they say, it was January they got snowed out?
Yeah, it was February 19th, yeah.
So they're very interested in this.
All right, any other discussion? I'm sure.
Okay, I know I've said my bit about the aquatics department. The one thing about the aquatics department is that it spans all the villages. I don't know, I'm not a part of the aquatics committee, but like I said, it's the one thing CA seems to do right, even though it's losing money. We're gonna have to look at that issue. I'm not sure that a pool, indoor pool should be built, but it might be an opportunity to repurpose an outdoor pool. And since we have so many outdoor pools, this might be something worth looking at. And it may be that we just don't spend this money, but I'd like to set it aside now. And if we approve the aquatics committee proposal and decide to move forward, it's already in the budget and we don't have to wait an extra year.
Janet.
I was just curious if we had dollar figures on an indoor pool. Haven't we been through that?
Not a 50-meter pool.
No, the last study had 5 million
50-meter pool
for an indoor
I mean,
pool.
like,
Plus
but does anyone have even a?
Yeah.
It's
20 million.
20 million.
20 million.
Remember, we did a joint.
With
we
$1
did
million operating loss.
We did it.
Right.
If I may.
Yes.
Very quickly, remember we did a joint review with the county, and it's a 50-meter or even a 25 yards. We're talking about 20 to 25 million construction costs, and then you lose millions of dollars in operating costs.
I would use Sherry.
Didn't we, in the aquatics plan, weren't there several neighborhood pools that were looked at in
Yes.
terms of enclosing?
Right.
And that was nowhere near
Right.
those millions of dollars. That was sort of standalone.
Right.
That's
type.
why I said that, though the cost for that, when that study was done, was 5 million.
Right.
And that study is the one that's being updated
Updated right now.
to give us the newer figures.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what it did. They
So
didn't
when
go
you
out.
say it's being updated, you mean in terms of the financial figures?
Oh, the whole.
The whole idea, the building
There were like
requirements, everything.
There were 3 different lines that we
They're
could have
they're still
done.
looking at those 3 pools, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but they're updating that whole report.
Okay.
And the big part will be the financial part of it.
Okay.
Jenny?
Yeah, I could be incorrect on this, but I thought what I heard was that at the design or the update has been completed. It was shown to the aquatics committee. I think it has 3 proposals in it. I'm trying to get a copy of that report. I think that I CC'd you on that, all of you on that request. So there are 3 proposals, if it's correct, with different dollar figures. Whether they actually locked into one site is better. I know Talbot Springs was one of the sites, and they ruled that out for many reasons. So that wasn't even part of the study. But I think what Renee is saying is, by time it gets to us, and was supposed to be a presentation to this board, and I don't see that on our future agendas the more I think about it, but it was supposed to be presented to us for a decision. But and we do that, say, in the next couple of months, if we make a decision to convert an outdoor pool to an indoor pool, there's no design money here. We lose another year. We've already lost 6 or 7 years. based on that the other previous study stayed on the shelf and wasn't, nobody did anything. Last year, we got the department to start updating the study. They hired a consultant, they did that. So the question is, do you want to wait another year before you even put design money in FY21, then if construction money possibly 22 and 23 if you split it. So, this is just a way of, you keep this there, you could at least start the design process if this board decides to move ahead. This board may or may not decide to do that.
Okay,
It's to keep the board's options open, I think.
As we're almost out of time, something to ask.
Way past time.
Oh, we're over time. Can we have 15 minutes and we'll try to wrap everything up here? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So there's a motion. I can just say, I don't know. My difficulty is this is such a big project, such a costly project. I really want to see this stuff before I commit anything to it. But I will take the vote. All those in favor? So we have Alan, Renee, Shari, Greg, Dick, opposed.
Ginny.
Right
here. We're the poor kids. We're the step kids over here.
You can only count one of them, I guess.
Yeah, we're like sisters. We all look alike.
Fix, we all look alike.
Opposed.
That purple and this tan.
Lynn, Nancy, Andy abstain. Dick, what about you, Ginny?
I voted for it.
Oh, you
Voted for it.
Okay.
He's got
Sorry.
to get his pencil moving over
Okay.
there.
I got my
All right.
I'll
All right.
throw money to the wind.
Income, operating budget income. There were no people want to discuss.
What were the numbers on that?
50,000.
No, I mean,
No, it's not.
None.
it was voted. It was approved.
It was approved. Yeah.
And Nancy.
Oh, and Nancy, sorry. You opposed?
No, I voted no.
All right. So the recommendation is approve all the changes to income. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. All right. Expenses. Communication and marketing. Quick. That was the web fee. That was the 40,000.
I have a question. There were two projects that were listed. Do you know where it fits in this book? There were two things. There was one for
So there's capital.
one was for website, and then there was a second one for website.
Yeah.
and I
So
had a
there's
question
capital
about that.
budget for the website, and then operating budget for the website.
What page on the budget book has this information that we're looking at?
As Susan answers it, we'll find it.
So the a new website has a capital and an operating component. So there are things that in developing a website we're required to capitalize. That's the capital part of this project, the $130,000. There are items related to it that you cannot capitalize, such as training, data conversion, the maintenance, licensing, maintenance.
811.
So those are operating. So it's just the accounting
So you
requirement.
just have to split them
Right.
into two pieces.
Exactly.
All right, fine. That was my only question. Thank you.
All right. Open spaces. There were 3 of them, decreased by 15, decreased by 65, decreased by 55.
But don't we have to take a vote on the one that did?
Sure, we can take a vote on the web. All those in favor? Unanimous. All right. Actually, the next one is Inner Arbor. Sorry, 157,000 for operating rate for Inner Arbor. Any discussion? Alan.
I cannot approve until the Inner Arbor has a real plan to become self-sufficient, until they figure out a way to drop the absurd things that are being planned for the main part of the park, and mostly until they take a really strong look at what they can really do and agree to, this has been subject to much discussion at the state level and here. If Inner Arbor wants to program the chrysalis, it's there. They seem to be doing a fine job. That seems like a fine thing. I would vote for this if the Inner Arbor had agreed to say, okay, the rest of the park, let it come back to CA to create a great park there, and Inner Arbor can continue to operate the Chrysalis. I'd be happy to pay Nina's salary and a little bit more. I hope that's what that $157,000 is.
Nancy.
I support this fully. I think that Nina's been doing a tremendous job with absolutely no pay. I think the Inner Arbor, the Chrysalis, has had fabulous programming, and it's bringing the community together, which is the whole point. I move that we accept.
The recommendation is to accept it. So I'd like to call the vote on this. All those in favor of approving the operating grant? So it's Janet, Renee, Ginny, and all those opposed. Alan, okay.
You might
And Dick.
want to look at the whole group.
Alan and Dick, right?
360 collision here.
All right, open space. So there were three things. A decrease in the account for repairs and maintenance, a decrease in wages and salaries, and a decrease in reduction of other fee expenses. Any discussion on
Which
this?
one again?
This is the open space ones. If you look on page B82, open space, there.
Andy, can you say it again?
8-2 open space, decreased by 15,000 account for repairs and maintenance, decreased 65,000 account for wages and salaries, and then decrease 55,000 reduction in other fees.
Yeah, the first one's sport and fitness.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. All right, we'll forget that one.
No, actually, I do want to talk about that one.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's do the two open space ones first.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right, so I guess my question was, so there was money that was put in the budget and it wasn't used?
For salaries and wages, is that the one you're talking about? So
Yeah.
what it comes down to is that there is more turnover in the workforce than there has been in prior years, and hiring people takes longer than it did in the past. So we end up with people that aren't on. We're going to use every FTE that we have. We're going to hire everybody that I can. We're not going to outsource, but there is more downtime, and that's reflected in the savings that are here. It's not a reduction in force. It's simply a fact of life. It just takes longer to hire people, and they have more opportunities elsewhere.
So you're talking about hiring full-time people?
Correct.
Okay, and what about the part-time people, or there are crews that are outsourced to do the open space mowing and bush cutting and that kind of stuff?
So we have one part-time person, a seasonal person for the open space operations team, and that we had last year and the year before. We don't hire. We haven't had good success with part-time people, and what my team members say is that by the time I train them, they're either gone, or I can't train them and they break more than they're worth. So we haven't had much success. They're college kids, or they haven't been great. So we did away with part-time help. So it's not part-time people; it's full-time people.
Okay, do you think changing the salary to $15 an hour will help?
I took a look at it, but I think I've raised the starting salary. There aren't many people at the very bottom, and I have raised the salary already twice. And the other thing we've just done is we have two new programs. One is on the back of all of our trucks. So I reached out to an HR director and asked them what they thought, and they said, you're going to find your people locally at that level. They're not going to come from D.C. They're not going to come from the internet. They're going to come from someone locally who might see a sticker on the back of your truck that says, join the CA team. So we just released those, and they'll be on our trucks in a week or two. In addition to which, we have a referral program that we just started, and we're going to offer team members who refer someone who's hired, stays for the first 30 days a stipend, and then after a year they get another stipend. Because the best source of finding other good people is from the good people that you have. I think from the good people that you have. It's like good contractors know other good contractors. Good workers know other good workers. So we have instituted those two programs But even with that, we're going to have a lot of downtime.
Great.
Exactly. What are we starting? What are we starting our full-time people at then?
I think we're just so for in the open space full-time year-round. I think we're at $15 an hour. I can check that. 15. I think it's like 15.01 or something because we weren't having success. We were at 13 or 13.80 or something, and we weren't having any success with that.
Alan.
This may have been Greg's question, but just yes or no, are you currently paying anybody less than $15 an hour?
I don't believe so, but I'll find out.
Okay. If I'm understanding the high finance you're talking about, you've got positions you want to hire, it's just taking longer to hire them, so you don't need to spend the money now, you're going to spend it later. Is that sort of...
Well, I'm going to not spend any more money later. I'm just not going to spend the money I have now. So let's say I have $12,000. It takes me a month to hire somebody. That position is vacant.
Got it. So while the positions that you need are vacant, are you paying overtime to people who are currently working so they can cover the work that needs to be done?
I'm hoping that most of that downtime is in the winter when I'm not cutting as much grass. I mean, you're laughing, but it's true. So when I had 4 vacant positions, we made 2 offers. I think I've got 2 people, but I'm still short 2 people. I'm not cutting
But
grass
you're not
right
currently
now.
paying people overtime to do work that needs to be done.
Milton and Janet.
Well, the other thing is we've heard, the board has heard before, to get to where we are with the operating budget, we asked the department directors to make put some dollars on the table. And we didn't tell them what those dollars have. This is something that Dennis put on the table, and he will work through it. That's part of what I believe is managing your budget.
We have the same situation in the accounting division, but we built it in already. We didn't have to show it as a change. Where we had an IT. We've had turnover in IT that we now budget for that vacancy period because we know it's going to take a while to hire people. We just hadn't done that in the past and would have a big favorable variance, but now we're budgeting more accurately.
Janet.
I was just going to say, I think Dennis sounds pretty confident that this is okay with him, so I'm just not sure how much more we need to discuss it.
All right. I'm going to call the question on the 2 open space ones. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, unanimous. Okay.
No, it wasn't unanimous, was it?
He approved it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Unanimous. All right.
Could I just ask a simple question? If the board didn't vote to approve this, would that mean that management would have to pay somebody $65,000 somewhere?
There would just be $65,000 in the budget.
Right.
They could use.
We have to find an offsetting 65.
Right.
No, well,
we
we
find
have
an
to find
offsetting
an
65, right. You have to find an offsetting
It's not
65.
that straightforward.
Party time at the barn.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's go. Sports and fitness. Greg, you had a question on the decrease in 15,000?
Because it goes with something, I know I didn't respond to your email, but I mean, I made a big point of this when we talked about the operating budget several meetings ago. But I have a big problem with the board of directors, the consulting project, the $20,000. And then I see $15,000 because, again, staff asked their departments, or senior management asked the departments, hey, come up with some savings. I just don't think it's the time to cut corners at nickel and dime sport and fitness on maintaining the facilities. It's just not. I don't understand this, and I'm sure Dan would say, oh, don't worry, I can do it, but I don't feel like we should put him in that position. I'd rather see that money in there, and then to the extent we need to find something, gee, it's right above it, this $20,000 board consultants piece that I would readily eliminate to pay for it.
Alan.
Yeah, I guess along those lines, I'd just like to ask the question. I know Dan's not here to answer, so I guess I'm going to ask you, Milton. Was this $15,000 because there's no longer a need for certain repairs and maintenance at those 3 facilities, or is it simply because Dan was told take some money out of your budget? And
Susan has an
Susan
answer.
can respond.
So I'm sure Dan would have left this in if I hadn't asked for some funds for each of the departments, but it's $5,000 from each of these, and all 3 of these have seen major renovations recently, and actually those repairs and maintenances costs at those facilities have gone down. It's not a material amount of money for each of those facilities, and they have newer components now significantly. So that's I know that's the conversation that we had. But
Yeah, if I just respond, I mean, I go to the athletic club really often. Can't tell, but I do.
I saw you there.
I saw you there.
But
Do you spend all day there?
It's there.
Great, beautiful.
But I'm just saying that even with the renovations, there are things that come up. I mean, they're
Right.
fairly well used. And again, I just don't understand why we would nickel and dime this. I mean, you're right. It's not a big amount of money. Then why not just leave it in?
Well, what's the percentage off their repair and maintenance budget does this represent?
so they're at
$5,000.
$5,000. Their budget right now is $321,000 for repairs and maintenance. So.
But it pays for
For those 3 facilities?
No, for one. So for the athletic club, their FY20 budget before that $5,000 reduction for repairs and maintenance is $321,000.
Wow. But it's just been renovated.
Right.
That's why Dan said
Should be
it was
taking more instead of the
$450,000.
You guys don't know what you're talking about.
Jeez.
Wait a minute.
There's a lot of repair and maintenance costs these facilities.
Yeah.
No matter what renovation, they're only renovating parts of. Other than the athletic club,
That's true.
they're only renovating
You're
parts
right.
of these facilities.
There was
It's
already
not
a
fair to
toilet
say
that
they
fell
don't
off
need
the
it.
wall. I was
Little micromanage.
You ought to walk on the slippery floor.
All right, look, I'd like to call the question on all the rest of these.
Well, I have
We're
one
about-
too.
Well, we'll get to you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, and all the rest of the changes, all those in favor of the.
Well, what all the rest? We have to do the 15,000.
Everything on that page.
All right, those in favor of the 15,000.
Reduction.
Opposed?
Oh, yeah.
I think great. Abstain?
That's me.
Renee.
And I would
Okay.
like to. Okay, then I move that the $20,000 for the board consulting be removed.
I won't second that one.
Was that the strategic planning?
That was part of the strategic, as the development for the next year, board development session.
It's not strategic planning.
No, I said the board
It's board
developments for the next year.
It's just these things like we had back in November. And Dick, I think, was far more articulate than I could ever be as far as the value of what that consultant brought us. Thank you. And I would say this: if you all don't agree with me, what I really would like is that there be a condition that these be subjected to a board vote, not just that the chair, one person, say, "I want to spend this, from this $20,000 consultant fund," but that each of these be a proposal for the board to vote on.
Is there a second?
With you on that.
Yep, Dick seconded that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Of removing money?
Yeah, he was removing the money. 3. All those opposed?
For the record, did you say?
So it was, all those in favor of Greg's motion was Dick, Greg,
And Renee.
and
Opposed? That's
and Renee. Everybody else voted,
I abstained.
and Alan abstained.
So is that?
Okay, so it fails.
All right, then I move that we put a condition on it that any spending from the $20,000 be subject to a board vote.
Second.
Second, yep.
All those in favor? Opposed?
For the record, I mean, really, for the record.
Yeah, I'm trying to get all this done. Okay,
Set this up on the spreadsheet.
yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, so the Greg is adding a condition that the funds be subject to a board vote, basically, the board approving the contract.
And we just vote on that?
Right.
Right?
Right.
All those in favor of that?
Well, isn't that what we just voted on?
No.
Yeah, but now we're doing it again for Valerie.
We're doing it again for Valerie because I could not catch all of them.
Smile at Valerie.
All right, so Lynn, Nancy, Greg, Dick, Renee, Alan, Janet, all those opposed?
You had approved it the first
I'd
round.
approved it, yeah, sorry. And
So it's
and abstain? Okay, so Sherry opposed and Ginny abstained.
And Andy also approved.
All right, so
be approved.
Okay, all the rest of the changes.
These are the ones that nobody said.
That nobody said anything. All those in favor of the rest of the changes? Unanimous. Good. All right.
I just have one more.
Yep. Quick, Jenny.
Okay, real quick. I'm concerned about the grant programs and the fact that we never get any presentation. I think, Janet, you raised this about a year ago. I'm also concerned that the Columbia Foundation, we gave $105,000. Last 2 years, we plan on giving $100,000. If this is CA assessment money and whatever other revenue we got, I don't understand why we give $105,000 to another organization, and I missed it last year, and allow them to decide how that money's distributed. I could see if they have something that they want to fund, and we have a fund here of, say, $100,000 to be used to partner with the Columbia Foundation or another organization so that that project or that need is met, but that we have some control over it. I just don't see giving away $100,000 to another organization to just do as they wish. I don't get it.
Ginny, Alan, I'm sorry, Dick, Alan?
I think Jane raises a good point. I don't want us necessarily approving all these, but I think we should at least get a presentation from Michelle as to what these grants are for and how they're going to be used, and so we could give advice on it. But yeah, it does seem to be something that's just happening in darkness right now.
Yeah, I don't. In our village, we when somebody wants us to donate a school or whatever, first of all, we've required them to come physically. They can't just send in a written thing to the board and make their presentation and tell us what it's for. Not to say what each dollar is going to be used for, but we'd like $500 from you. This is going to help totally fund this, or it's going to be half of what we need, or a third of what we need, whatever it is. So we have a sense of why and what, and we retain that connection with them.
I was just trying to remember. I think it's because the larger amounts are put in the budget, then we have to vote them in. Is that right?
Right.
It's over a certain amount. Okay, that's what I was trying to remember.
I think probably the best thing is we should have Michelle come and give a presentation to the board on the grant program, because I know that she does have a form you have to fill out and things like that. I mean, I think we just don't have a good understanding of it all, and I think it just would be better.
Actually, I saw the form last year. There is a form, but not the Columbia Foundation is different. It's just here's $105,000, here's whatever it was last year. The last 3 years, it may have gone beyond that. I only last for the last 3, or the last 2 that were given and the proposed.
Milton's going to.
They don't have to explain anything.
The way the process is set up, what I've learned since I've been here, the dollars we give to the Howard County Foundation they go through their grant process. That's more restrictive than our grant process. We hold back dollars for us generally for the programs that we normally have funded over the years, and so they have we don't repeat. You don't go to us, come to CA and go to them and get dollars. They have a separate group of individuals. They have a process, and so. But Michelle knows it more. She brings the grants to me, and we talk through them and we approve them. One of the things I have said since I've been here, I want to make sure that we don't continue this fund and organization. For example, the village in Howard, since I've been here, we've increased the grant from $10,000 to $25,000, and I said that's fine, but 3 years later, they should not be still coming back to us for $25,000.
Yeah, but excuse me, all the others we know what exactly we're funding, like Downtown Partnership, the Inner Arbor Trust, etc. On the Columbia Foundation, I know it's a more thorough, quite strenuous grant process than we have. I've looked at ours, and I know I'm familiar with theirs. The point I'm making is they have their priorities. We may have our priorities. It's $100,000 that we are turning over to another organization with their priorities. we may not agree with all of them, and we may not agree with who's getting the money. Why don't we keep it, and instead of 52,000 being available for these small grants, we would have 152,000 available. That's simply it. And then, yes, we do have to make sure that she presents who's applied, what she's given, why it's given. You want to know what is the objective when they apply for it, what do they hope to accomplish, and have they accomplished it? I don't see any evaluation being done, at least as far as we get feedback on it.
Yeah, I do think, so as part of our discussion last time, we were told we were going to get some kind of follow-up.
Right, and we
but
didn't.
I guess I'm not against what you're saying, Jenny, and another side to that seems to me that if the Columbia Foundation had $200,000 and they had somebody who needed $300,000, having our $100,000 could have enough for that. Whereas
that's right, they can come and apply.
But then they'd have to do 2 applications to 2 separate places, and they may not get one or the other, and then they might not have. So I'm just saying that's another argument for having the larger pot.
Well, also, very quickly, Alan, from my understanding, the Howard County Foundation, they don't give out grants based on the dollars we give them greater than $10,000.
Say the first, they don't do what?
They don't. The grant, the pool of money we give them, the grants they make on our behalf, they are not greater than $10,000.
So they're actually making them on our behalf?
Yes, they're making them.
It doesn't make
any
sense.
Okay. Then I'm more in line with what Jimmy's.
But we don't know what they are.
Great.
Do we know that every dollar that we give to them goes to another entity, or is there some percentage, like, when I give to the capital campaign every year, you get to look up and see what percentage of your donation?
Yeah, I know you're talking about the 97% goes and only that's something Michelle would have to.
That would be interesting to know, to Jenny's point, because if you take out the middleman, you can actually have more impact sometimes.
Depends on where it's going.
Depends on where it's going.
You can work with them as partners in terms of,
right.
You can send somebody over for 10 from us and 10 from you. But
that you should consider that Michelle that would be an added duty for Michelle. So that
people apply for grants from the county, from the feds, from the state, from CA, from Columbia Foundation all the time.
Right.
I'm saying that 100,000. If it was 10 grants, that's 10 grants that she's gonna have to administer.
Let's kind of wrap this up here because, we're not changing the budget at all. The budget's kind of, been approved. And I think what we need to do is bring in Michelle, and then the board can talk about it, and figure out how to distribute that money. Basically, we've just set aside a pot of money.
Oh, so it's not definitely going to the foundation right now. It looks like it is here.
Well, we could leave it in the budget subject to review.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll change my motion. It would be to put a condition on assuming this says $100,000. Put a condition on the $100,000 for the Columbia Foundation until the board has had it.
Do not put that in the motion. It's the Columbia Association Foundation.
I'm sorry, it says Community Foundation of Howard County.
That's specific
You're correct.
amount just for the Community Foundation.
You're correct. Community Foundation of Howard County put a condition on it that says that it's subject to the board.
No. But wait, could we just wait to have Michelle come in? Because it's my understanding one reason why the board took the action, the board had removed themselves from the grant funding. The board put in the budget a dollar amount, and they removed themselves entirely from how those dollars are allocated.
Yeah, that's what happened years ago.
That's what I was told, that the board stayed out of it. They didn't want to make the grant. They didn't want to be political. They didn't want to have favorites. And they removed themselves from the process.
Right, they cut themselves out totally.
Yeah, I chaired the Columbia Foundation at one time or other. Spent a lot of time on the Grants Review Committee. I think the reason, I can see a really good reason for this, if you're dealing with smaller grants, there are a lot of them. It's really difficult to evaluate them. You don't have one person that sits there. You have a committee, and you have follow-up, and you have reporting. It's a pretty elaborate process, and it's not the kind of process that I think one person is geared to. There's no way that one person at the Columbia Association could necessarily just be able to evaluate the broad community requests that are here. So I can see, especially for the smaller grants, that it makes more sense to give that money. We want it to go in the community, and the foundation really takes in a huge scope of requests and evaluates them very well.
No, Nancy.
I just want to say that it is 10:20.
Yeah.
We have 3 more important items that we need to bring up on the agenda. And then we have a closed meeting, and we have an important vote. So I don't want to be rude. Please understand. But I want to be out of here before 1 o'clock this morning.
I think what we'll do is we'll get Michelle in here before the beginning of the fiscal year, and then the board can make a decision, okay? All right, next one, potential vote on state legislation. There was none. County state legislation. All right. Approval of the charter. Is there a motion to approve the charter for the Millennial Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. And Sherry voted in favor of approving the Millennial Charter, so.
Nancy, did you abstain, Nancy?
No, she approved.
No, I'm approving that.
So it was unanimous?
Yep.
It was vote was unanimous.
Sherry.
All right. CBA legislation.
Sherry wasn't
Huh?
Sherry's at it. No, she was walking back into the room and was raising
And
her
she raised
hand.
her hand as she was walking back
That's what I was wondering.
Okay. We have the recommendation. We would like to make public 5 documents. Is there a motion to approve that recommendation? Nancy. Is there a second? Renee.
Now, what are these, the 5 documents that we're going to talk about in our closed meeting?
We can talk about it in our closed meeting, but these are the ones we're going to release.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion on that? So we're all happy? All right. All those in favor? Unanimous. Great. Wow.
Now let's talk about
All right.
We have one more.
No.
You didn't talk about.
Jessica.
No.
Which one?
Well, we have Jessica, but also my little question about changing the policy for board members running.
No, that's coming up next.
Well, it's on the agenda here.
It is?
It's on my agenda.
No.
Board member
The
what?
agenda
No.
is the potential vote on Howard County's
It's not on the agenda.
delegation
Not on
policy.
the
Right
agenda.
here, it's C.
None, whatever. that is.
February 14th.
Forget it. Ignore me.
Okay. It's on the next agenda. I mean, it's next month.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Living in the past.
Valerie, would you like to try to recap those talking points?
Well,
No. Let's. There's no way.
Simply, the board voted to accept staff's 3 recommendations regarding the FY20 membership budget, to approve the draft conditional FY rates as amended, and I could, if you want me to, I'll
Yeah.
go back, but you'll
That's
get it
good.
all in the minutes.
What did we do again?
Approve the draft conditional FY rates as amended.
No, we didn't. No, we voted on what was left of it. We didn't vote on the budget.
I said rates.
These are the rates.
Oh, rates. Okay, go ahead.
We voted on the rates.
Okay, sorry. I thought you said the budget.
Living in the past.
We voted on the capital budget.
Okay,
And-
approve changes to the conditional FY20 capital budget as amended.
Right.
No, we did not.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Here's what happened, and it was your words. We voted on each of those little things.
Right.
And then you said, okay, now on what's left. Is what you said every time, now on what's left.
Right.
So that what's left was not the things that we did the individual votes.
Well, we already voted
We
on
did the
those.
individual
We
votes.
already voted on
We
those.
did part of it individual, we did the rest of it
I mean,
in one lump.
It is like.
We voted on the whole budget.
We did not. I did not. I guarantee you, I did not, because that's not what you said, Andy. I would have
We
voted.
voted in or out each piece,
Yeah.
and then what was left, we voted on
Right.
the whole budget.
Once we approved.
When
Once
you
we
said what was
approved.
left, I thought he meant there was other things we didn't take a vote on.
Correct.
Because I mean, there were some things I felt strongly. I would have voted against
The
that.
whole budget.
The whole budget.
No, what we
Instead-
did is we voted all the amendments one by one or in a group, and we approved
Process
basically.
that we agreed was if we call certain, we all had the opportunity to call certain things out.
I know
and
that.
have individual
It's
votes.
just when he said, okay, now on what's left, like i.e. the things we did not take individual votes on.
Right.
And but
So you think that should have been the whole budget at that point?
if he had said,
as-
okay, now that we've done that, now let's vote on the budget that's now before us, I would not have voted for it.
Oh,
I wouldn't have.
so you'd like one vote on like the entire capital budget
Yes.
as amended?
We did
I
that.
did not understand that to be happening when Andy said we're going to vote on what's left.
I think we did that.
I thought we did too, because I have the votes here.
But we never took one.
No, I did. I thought I did.
We never voted. We voted on several things individually. If you think of a pie, we voted on certain slices individually. Then we voted on a big slice, but we never took a vote on the entire pie, which is, I guess, what I'm understanding you as.
I have it here as 10-0-0 and 10-0-0.
For the parts
For
that
the
were left,
remainder.
for the big slice.
All right.
But there was I agree that we never did a vote on the entire thing unless we say
So he
that
lost a vote. So
Because we did
he would
each
vote against
small
it.
Because we did each
added
section.
piece.
Remember, we have a budget.
I think though, to
No.
Greg's point, last time around, we did have a vote on the entire
Right,
budget.
because we were adopting the budget.
The difference.
We've already adopted the 2020 budget, and so what we did is we just made the changes.
Oh, gotcha.
That's what we
There was
did.
never-
Remember, because we already have a 2020 budget.
I mean,
What
I'm
we
okay
did is we're doing the changes. This is why we're doing very late. Okay.
I guess it is different.
All right, what are you going
Approve
to next?
changes to the conditional FY 2020 operating budget.
Yep.
Approved charter for the Millennial Advisory Committee.
Yep.
And I did not get what you did with whatever CBA.
The CBA legislation, I think it was Nancy and Renee. No, it was, Nancy and Renee, and it was approved. We accepted the recommendation from staff to release 5 of the documents. All right, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We'll work on the rest of the talking points, and we're upstairs